What's up, bitches? How's everybody doing? We're doing our third live stream. This is not secular talking smack like it was the last few times. What I'm going to do is as you could tell from the title, is a little preview of what to expect for Trump's State of the Union. So I'll break that down for you, and then however long that takes, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so is my guess. But could go longer, could go shorter. But then perhaps I'll take some super chats from you guys. I should mention that I spoke to some people about the super chats after the fact, and they were like, yeah, there's no way to really guarantee that they all stay up. Apparently they go away after like 2 or 3 minutes, which I think is ridiculous because that's like, I just simply can't keep up with that. So anyway, I apologize if I missed some super chats the last time around, but if we get to super chats today, which I think we will a little later, I'll do my best to answer the questions as fast as humanly possible, and hopefully answer more of your questions, although I'm pretty sure I'll miss many more. So I'll jump into that in a second, into the breakdown of the State of the Union. I do realize that at this moment that I'm live, I'm competing with the Emperor God King known as Jordan Peterson over on Joe Rogan's channel. So I don't expect as many people to be listening to this. Although I think we have some crossover fans, myself and Joe Rogan. But believe it or not, I think that there's even some crossover fans between me and Jordan Peterson, which is a little surprising because, I'm not the biggest fan of his, and I'm pretty sure he's not the biggest fan of me. So it's a little weird that we have crossover fans, but hey, whatever, to each their own. I am entering on the back end here in the control room. I see that you guys are chatting away in the live chat. That's wonderful. So don't hit me with super chats yet, at least at this very second, because if you do, I'm going to miss it. So I'm going to go ahead and start my breakdown, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly what you can expect during Trump's State of the Union. Now, first of all, let me just say, even though I despise Trump with every fiber of my being, and he's a danger to the world, and I consider all that stuff relatively obvious, you can't lie that the idea of a Trump State of the Union is a little bit exciting. I feel dirty and gross saying that, but I really think that's true. I mean, the guy is, I don't even know the right word for it. He's just a wild man. He seemingly talks off the cuff, and he's got that fake straight shooter thing going on, and he certainly generates a lot of media attention. But I expect this to be a bonanza. Okay, so first of all, what are Trump's main themes going to be? Well, it shouldn't surprise you that probably his biggest theme is going to be the market and unemployment. This is something that, if you follow him on Twitter, you'll realize that it's basically his response to everything. His response to pretty much everything at this point is, oh yeah, well, the market's doing tremendous. Believe me, the market's unbelievable. I have to just tell you. And the unemployment rate, like, for example, Jay-Z was criticizing him over the weekend. I think he did an interview on CNN with Van Jones, and Trump responded like, oh yeah, well, the black unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been. So how about that? Unbelievable. Now, what's annoyed me about this is the response from many Democrats and the response from people who are basically neoliberals. They respond by saying, oh no, you have to give Obama credit for the low unemployment rate among black people today. And, I think that they just fundamentally don't care enough about the issues to dive deeper into something like this. But the reality is the response from people on the left when Trump brags about the low unemployment rate should be, the unemployment rate is not a very good measure of the health of the economy. It's just not. So yes, we have a low unemployment rate today, but these are not high paying jobs. So, this is what happened with the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession. People lost higher paying jobs. And then when there was a bounce back, first of all, most of the benefits went to the top 1% in the rebound in the recession. But for everybody else, even if they got a job, they got a lower paying job. So, you know, the idea of like harping away on the unemployment rate as if that's like, you know, oh my God, it's so great that this thing is low. No, you need the details as to what exactly are those jobs and how well are people doing. So the stock market and the unemployment rate, those are not the best economic indicators of how your average American is doing. In fact, they're some of the worst indicators of how your average American is doing. I'm going to draw an analogy here that's going to sound a little ridiculous, but I'm saying it because it's true. You can have a situation where you have a 0% unemployment rate. You know how you do that? Slavery. So everybody who's not working, it's going to be forced labor. And then you could turn around and go, look, we don't even have unemployment in this country. Isn't that wonderful? Well, no, because again, what matters is what are those jobs? And unfortunately, the job growth that we've had, it's all in low wage industries. So it's just sad to see that the response from Democrats is so weak. It's such a weak response to say, oh, the low unemployment rate, yeah, that's great, but it's Obama who gave us that. No, stop. The response is you're focusing on the unemployment rate, Donald Trump, because that's the best thing you can point to, because you can't account for the fact that all these jobs are low-wage jobs and income inequality is at a record high right now. So it annoys me that, you know, you have this paradigm where people are responding in an ineffectual way that actually helps Trump, because then people are going to roll their eyes and go, oh, okay, so you're going to give Obama credit for this when Trump's been in for over a year and he's done different economic policies. So look for Trump to talk about the unemployment rate. He's going to do that. And look for Trump to brag about the market. My guess is he's going to bring up the record number of, or he claims it's a record number of highs for the Dow since he's been in office. But again, what's the response to this? The response is we're in a fucking bubble. We're in a bubble. This isn't real growth. So you had the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, and the government just reinflated that bubble. They bailed out Wall Street. They did the stimulus. And you haven't had an increase in wages for the middle class from the 1980s and onward. So we are in a gigantic bubble. People forget that leading up to the Great Depression, it wasn't like, oh, everything is stable and steady and we're all happy. It was, oh my God, we're fucking riding a tsunami wave and the good times are never going to end. And that's why they called them the Roaring 20s, is because the market was booming and everything is great. And isn't this awesome? And then boom, there was a giant crash, stock market crash in 1929, followed by the Great Depression. Again, you saw similar trends in the 2000s leading up to the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession in 2008. We're right back in a gigantic bubble. And it drives me fucking crazy that, again, the response from the Democrats is, oh, no, we need to give Obama credit for the great economy that we have now. No, the answer is it's not a fucking great economy. It's not a great economy. You have corporate profits are at a record high. But again, you haven't had an increase in wages for the middle class from the 1980s. So the problem is the Democrats always agree to the framework the Republicans set up and then try to argue on their grounds. The real answer is you bust up the framework and say your whole paradigm and the whole way you're measuring this is incorrect. I don't give a fuck that we're in a bubble. That's a bad thing. I'd rather have steady, stable growth where you have strong unions, a living wage, and you have policies that are good for the workers. But no, we deregulating like fucking crazy now, going right back to the same policies that caused the crash in the first place. And so again, this is what Trump's going to do. He's going to brag about the market. He's going to brag about unemployment, even though the market is not an indicator of how your average person is doing. It's an indicator of how the rich are doing and an indicator of how corporations are doing. And the unemployment rate, that's a misleading thing to talk about because, again, doesn't matter if the unemployment rate is low, but all the jobs are paying a pathetically low wage, which is the exact situation that we have right now. But again, you're not going to hear a good response from the Democrats on that front. And the market and unemployment will be two main things that Donald Trump talks about. He's going to hammer away on those issues. Okay. the next thing he's going to do is he'll bring up the bonuses that some companies are paying out as a result of the tax bill. Now, again, this is massively misleading. The Republicans have a really good PR machine and marketing machine, so they get people to believe their bullshit. But the reality is, first of all, 98% of workers saw no benefit from Trump's tax bill. 2% did. Of those 2% that did, again, this is something you have to dive into the specifics of. For example, in the case of AT&T, they said, oh, it's because of Trump's giant tax cut that we're going to give our workers a bonus. Well, guess what? When you research it, you find out, no, the unions negotiated with AT&T to get that. And then after the fact, the management at AT&T goes, oh, no, we're doing this because of the great tax bill that was just passed. So this is what's called propaganda. You had a hard-fought victory by the unions, but what's given credit is the far right-wing policies that just hand more money over to the corporations. Another thing is well over 90% of the benefits are going to stock buybacks. So in other words, people who are the executives at all these different corporations are taking the benefits of this tax bill and giving themselves more money. That's the gist of it. Furthermore, we already know that I think it's 82% of the benefits of Trump's tax bill goes to the top 1%. Everybody who makes $75,000 a year or less will see a net tax increase over the next 10 years. So whatever middle class benefits there are in the bill are temporary, but what's permanent, the corporate tax cut, for example, a cut from 35% to 21%. The estate tax is another thing. A giant cut in the estate tax. Originally, they wanted to eliminate it, but they gave a little bit of ground on that. It used to be if you have $5 million worth of wealth or more, you get hit by the estate tax. Now it's $11 million or more. So this is it's just a giveaway to the rich. That's all it is. That's all it is. And you have a giant PR machine on the right that spins it and tries to pretend like, no, this is great for workers. Well, here's a radical idea. If you actually cared about workers, instead of giving the corporations and the rich money and hoping that it trickles down to the workers, you could have just done a policy where you gave the workers the money. But they didn't do that. And they didn't do that because they're not for the workers. Again, there's always, we got to do the middleman of give it to the rich people and give it to the corporations, and then it will maybe trickle down. Well, no, if you really wanted to give it to the workers, okay, make the minimum wage a living wage. That helps a lot. Do card check or other pro-union legislation. Ban so-called right-to-work laws. If you were to do that, then you would be giving the benefits directly to the middle class. You could have done, you could have given them a gigantic tax cut, made it permanent, but they didn't do that. Again, you net raise taxes on everybody who makes $75,000 a year or less over the next 10 years. So what he's going to do is he's going to have really misleading examples, and he'll point to certain corporations and say, oh my God, everything is so great. And isn't this great for the workers, even though I just gave you the facts and it's not great for the workers? But he'll have a few misleading examples and he'll hammer away on those misleading examples. So this is how he's going to build his case on economics. He's going to focus on the market, the unemployment rate, and the effects of the tax bill, but it will all be skewed. It will all be misleading. It'll all miss the higher picture. I mean, imagine the bigger picture, I should say. Imagine, we live in a country where half of workers make $30,000 a year or less. You're going to have Trump go out there and try to make the case like, no, things are actually fucking wonderful. And workers are really getting help under my administration. That's just complete and utter nonsense. And by the way, only 33% of the American people even supported Trump's tax plan, even with the fucking just tsunami of propaganda in its favor. I referenced tsunamis twice. I was trying to come up with a different one. I was like, fuck it, we're going with tsunami. Okay, so that's his economic case. Another thing he's going to do is he's going to brag about ISIS being defeated. What he's not going to tell you, of course, is ISIS, they actually are in shambles at the moment, but that's not because of the U.S. at all. That's actually because of the Kurds. The Kurds were on the ground fighting back against ISIS vociferously. You have the Syrian army exact same thing. They've been fighting back against ISIS. You have the Iraqi army, and you have Shia militias. So Trump is going to make it so that the United States takes credit for hard-fought victories from people in the region. And that is fucking really frustrating. Really frustrating. Because not only did, for example, were the Kurds largely responsible for what happened with ISIS, but now we're sitting by idly and allowing Turkey to destroy the same Kurds that just really took it to ISIS. It's infuriating. So Washington is going to take credit. Donald Trump is going to take credit. And they're going to bolster these neocon policies. He's going to make the case that, I have destroyed ISIS. ISIS is in shambles, and it is unbelievable. It is tremendous. And he'll be propping up neoconservative policies in the process, arguing that intervention is good, when, of course, we wasted trillions of dollars in the Middle East. Trump used to point that out, too. Oh, we wasted trillions of dollars. Why don't we just rebuild our infrastructure here at home? This is crazy. But no, now Trump is bombing. He took us from bombing 7 countries to 8 countries. He increased drone strikes 432%. The State Department just announced the other day we're staying in Syria indefinitely. So he's going to try to bolster these interventionist policies and argue, oh, it's obviously a good thing. Look, ISIS is in shambles. Don't talk about the Syrian army. Don't talk about them. And by the way, we also bombed the Syrian government a few times, their air base, if you remember that. He's going to say, he won't mention it, but there will be a clear argument there of don't give credit to the Syrian army, don't give credit to the Iraqi army, don't give credit to the Kurds. We're going to take credit for it, and we're going to use this as an argument for further intervention. He's also going to, and this one is probably going to be one of the grosser parts of the speech, although it's all gross. He's going to talk about people who've been impacted by gang violence to justify his immigration policies. So, and he'll use an old trick that Republicans have used for a while, but he's kind of put front and center a lot more. He's going to use people who are Hispanic and say, look, they're victims of gang violence from illegal immigrants. Therefore, isn't it awesome that we're doing a massive crackdown on undocumented immigrants? That's the argument that's going to be made. And I know that because I think it was NBC News released a list of people who Trump invited to the speech, who he's going to point to. You know how this is what presidents do. They'll give their State of the Union and they'll point to, oh, and this person, and they tell a little story, anecdote about that person, and then everybody claps. And he's going to do that with people of color who had an experience where a loved one or something was murdered or hurt by another undocumented immigrant. And the underlying argument is going to be, we really should be deporting all these undocumented immigrants as a result of the fact that some of them are criminals. And of course, he will never acknowledge, and people on the right never acknowledge the fact that not just immigrants, but also undocumented immigrants, a lower percentage of them are criminals than the population. Isn't that amazing? Because you hear oftentimes these arguments coming from people like Trump, like, oh, the only reason we're against them is because of they're bad people and they're criminals. That's why we're against them. We got some bad hombres here. But they'll never talk about the macro statistics and the fact that the U.S. population in general, there are more criminals among citizens than immigrants and undocumented immigrants. So, what they're going to do, it's cheap demagoguery. And of course, he would never bring up the fact that if you really want to stop gang violence, you end the drug war. If you end the drug war, that is a fucking machete to the throat of criminal activity in the United States. Because if you legalize, tax, and regulate drugs, basically what you do is put the drug cartels out of business over time. And if you put the drug cartels out of business, there's going to be a lot less crime and violence, because a lot of the criminal activity is directly related to the black market of drugs. See, if there's a dispute now, because drugs are illegal, it's settled in the street with guns. If there's a dispute when you have legal, taxed, and regulated marijuana, well, guess what? You go to court and you wear suits and ties and you figure it out like civilized people. And we know this is the case because look at what happened with Prohibition. When we had prohibition of alcohol, crime shot up as a result. That's when you had the mafia get really, really powerful and organized crime get really powerful. Well, the same thing is happening now with prohibition of other drugs. So he's going to act like the way to stop gang violence is to deport all these undocumented immigrants, when in reality, the way to stop gang violence is to legalize, tax, and regulate drugs and destroy the black market in the process. So that's another thing he's going to do to justify his immigration policies. He's also going to, of course, talk about our soldiers and the military, and he's going to do what I like to call patriotism porn. And this will be, what he'll say is, you know, the military has been depleted under the previous administration, and now we made our military strong again. Something along those lines. And of course, that's complete and utter bullshit. You guys know this. I don't have to bring this up, but look at the charts on military spending under the Obama years. Yes. And what was it like under the Obama years? We spent more than the next 10 biggest countries combined. Our military spend more than the next 10 biggest militaries combined. And most of those countries are our allies. We have 900 military bases around the world. It costs $100 billion a year to maintain. Obama kept bombing 7 different countries. By the way, these are not good things. These are all fucking terrible things. But that's what it was like under Obama. But the argument from Trump is going to be, he's weak, I'm strong. And guess what? Under Trump, he did increase military spending. It was already way too high. We should cut it probably fucking 50%, if not more. But Donald Trump added $100 billion to the military budget, and many corporate Democrats went along with him. And that's just fucking beyond pathetic and sad. Did you know that for $80 billion, we could do free college for everybody? But they say, no, we can't afford free college. That's pie in the sky bullshit. But $100 billion to increase military spending? Pfft, no problem. Let's do that. So now Trump is going to brag about that, even though, again, on the campaign trail, he said, we need to stop wasting money overseas and we need to take that money, leave that money here and rebuild our own country. Well, at this point, we have no infrastructure bill from Donald Trump, to the point any of them have discussed it. It's to privatize a lot of our infrastructure, and we have military spending out the wazoo. But he'll point to soldiers in the audience and say, you know, we've now rebuilt our military and we're fully behind our heroes. That's another thing that'll happen. He's also going to do police glorification. Donald Trump loves to, you know, do propaganda for the police. And even when there's instances, especially when there's instances of police abuse, he goes, no, you know, our police have been disrespected by previous administrations and we are the biggest supporters of our boys in blue out of anybody. So he'll do police support porn. And then he'll also probably do, he'll bring some people from the federal government who were heroic in one way or another during one of the recent natural disasters, whether it's wildfires or whether it's flooding, like with Hurricane Harvey. And that's the least objectionable part of what he's going to do. But look for all of that. All that stuff is going to happen. And probably the most maddening thing, and I would put a lot of money on this right now. I would put a lot of money on. I don't know if Vegas would take this bet, but I would put a lot of fucking money on this. I predict the media is going to praise him after the speech. That's what I predict. I predict they're going to praise him, and you're going to hear the word presidential thrown around a lot. Now, why do I say that? Well, I mean, this is what they do when Trump bothers to tone it back 10 to 15%. And he is going to roll it back 10 to 15%, tone it down 10 to 15%. They're going to say, oh, he looked like a president. And if only Trump was like this all the time, you know, I think he would be a lot more popular. And I think that would be a good thing. And, you know, for example, we just covered it. Fareed Zakaria wrote an article, I think it was in the Washington Post, and he said Trump at Davos was great. And you go on to read his argument, and he goes, well, he was great because he gave a speech, and the speech was well received, and he wasn't bombastic in any way, shape, or form. He made nice with the globalist elitists around him, and that's a wonderful thing. And he went on to say, well, listen, his policies are like a standard Republican president, and when he does standard Republican president's policies and he's calmed down, well, that's wonderful. And I would say, no, that's not wonderful. In fact, that's why you should hate him. You should hate him because of his fucking policies. Remember, the first time the media really praised Donald Trump was when he bombed a Syrian government airbase. And that tells you all you need to know about how shitty this media is. Because what they do is when they do resist him, when they bother to resist him, they resist him from the right, which is crazy. I mean, that is nuts. So look for the media, look for many talking heads who would not talk about him in such glowing terms otherwise. Watch how low that bar is and watch how much they're going to blow him if he just manages to form complete sentences and not pull down his pants and take a shit on the podium. It's going to be so gross. And by the way, I'm doing this pre-show now, but I will, on the next Secular Talk Super Show, I'll probably have a decent breakdown. I'll take a bunch of clips and I'll fact check them and I'll give you, a standard breakdown like we usually do whenever it's a debate or something like that. But we'll be able to see. You have my prediction now, and then we will be able to see what ends up happening. God, I would bet a decent amount of money on this, man. I'm telling you. I think they're going to praise him when he does a standard political kind of speech. Now, furthermore, and probably something that a bunch of you are waiting for me to talk about, Joe Kennedy. Do I have a prediction for Joe Kennedy's State of the Union response? Joe Kennedy, yes, he's one of those Kennedys. He's a corporate Democrat. He's swimming in PAC money, corporate PAC money. And he was handpicked by Democratic leadership to give the response. And they say there's a curse of, the responses from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party to the State of the Union speeches. It's not a curse. It's that the leadership of both parties are so disconnected from the people that they have no clue what the people want. So their idea of an ideal candidate is literally what the people despise. I mean, the Republicans did this with Tim Pawlenty. I don't know if any of you guys remember Tim Pawlenty. He was literally the most boring person on the planet. I mean, this guy makes Wolf Blitzer look like a rock star. That's how boring Tim Pawlenty is. But the establishment was convinced he's going to be a great candidate. He ran for president and got -3 votes. And this is what they do. Oh, he's a Kennedy? Joe Kennedy? Okay, put him out there, and then, we'll pull the wool over everybody's eyes, and they'll forget to care about actual policies that will improve people's lives, and we'll keep the status quo going, but with a D next to the leader's name. So it's not a curse. It's that the leadership sucks because they're so out of touch in both parties. So obviously they're going to pick people who the American people don't want. So my prediction for Joe Kennedy's response is as follows. His speech will be substance-free, bitch. It will be as substance-free as humanly possible. Is he going to talk about Medicare for all? No. He might talk about, we need to make sure people have access to healthcare. These are the weasel words, man. These are the weasel words that you have to get, you have to sharpen your senses to look out for, because there's a reason they're using words like access to healthcare, because they don't want it to be a right. They don't want Medicare for all. Corporate Democrats don't want that, but they want to try to make you think that they're for you, even though they're not. Hillary did this with, we should get all of the dark money out of politics. Why'd you add the word dark in there? No, we should get the money out of politics. No, we should get all of the dark money out of politics. Why'd you add the word dark? Because what Hillary means is, oh no, I still want to allow all the politicians to be legally bribed, but I just want transparency in the process. And it's the same thing. So you'll probably hear Joe Kennedy say, we need to increase access to healthcare. But he's not going to talk about Medicare for all. He's not going to talk about free college. He's not going to talk about a living wage. He's not going to talk about a New Deal or legalizing marijuana or ending the wars. You will see no substance, and it will be painfully awkward is my guess. He's going to be really nervous because all he's been doing is sitting in smoke-filled rooms taking bribes for the past however many years. But here's what you will hear him say. He'll talk about how America is a nation of immigrants. It's a nation of immigrants. And I love the American dream. We need to restore the American dream. And bipartisanship is good. And there are families who are struggling who we need to help. But you won't hear, well, how do you want to do that? But again, what they'll focus on is diversity is good. We're a nation of immigrants. And what's hilarious is even when the Democrats are correct about something, like they don't want to deport all undocumented immigrants and stuff like that, they're still wildly ineffectual in fighting for the right policies. And the evidence of that is look at what Chuck Schumer and the Democrats just did on the Dreamers. You have over 80% of the American people with you, and they folded like a cheap lawn chair, like that. Like, oh, sorry, we will not fight for over 80% of the American people. and for immigrants who were brought here as kids through no fault of their own. So if you're not going to fight when you have over 80% of the American people with you and all the polls on your side, then you're never going to fucking fight. You're never going to fight. So even when they do the rhetoric of like, we don't hate minorities, and they do, it's like, okay, and then what? You're not going to fight for them on the policy front, so what the fuck are you bothering to talk about it for? And that's the point, is it's diversion tactics. It's, hey, we're better people than them. They're terrible people. And let me give you some platitudes and some cliches and not focus on policy. And I'm telling you, it's going to be fucking embarrassing, man. It's going to be embarrassing. Trump's is going to be bad. The Democratic response is going to be fucking embarrassing as well, because it's going to show they still haven't fucking learned. And every article called Joe Kennedy a rising star based on nothing. Based on nothing. Based on the fact that they like him, that Democratic leadership said to the media he's a rising star. Well, that doesn't mean anything. You could say fucking anything. It doesn't make it true. A real Democratic rising star would be, for example, Ro Khanna or Tulsi Gabbard. And I say that because they get more popular day by day, and they're proposing policies that the American people want and that are bold policies that, no other Democrats are really fighting to get behind. So those are the rising stars. But no, I guarantee you Democratic leadership didn't even consider them because they're not in good standing with the party, because they want the party to actually be populist left. So they're going to take a guy who doesn't rock the boat, who's a standard corporate Democrat, and they're going to hope that you'll fall for the platitudes and the cliches. It's not enough. Listen, if people were going to fall for the platitudes and the cliches, Hillary would be president right now. But people aren't falling for that shit anymore. So you have to be serious, but they're not going to be serious. It's the Democratic Party. It's just sad. Okay. And then, by the way, you can start sending in some super chat questions now. I'm going to take them in a little bit right after I talk for another 5 or 10 minutes about one more thing here. So you could start sending those super chats in now, and I'll try to keep my eye out for it so I could try to answer as many as possible. Again, I'm not going to be able to get to them all. Apparently, they only keep the super chats up for 2 or 3 minutes each, which is fucking crazy, because I could answer a question for fucking 10 minutes straight. So since that's just the nature of what it is, and I don't really know how to save them other than if I were to, try to jot it down at the same time or something. But that honestly seems like a gigantic pain in the ass. Hey, by the way, how many people are watching? Can somebody just type it on up in the chat for me so I don't have to open up a new window and take a look-ski? Well, actually, I'm probably lagging a good 30 seconds, so I'd have to sit here for 30 seconds to see what everybody's saying. I guess I could not be lazy and try to open it up in another tab. Do you guys like this sweater, or does it make me look like a gay sailor? I feel like I look a little bit like a gay sailor at the moment. Only 2,400. Fucking Jordan Peterson. Goddamn Jordan Peterson. Really? I have that many crossover fans with that douche? That's a shame. I think that's where people are. I think they're watching Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. I like Joe Rogan. I'm a fan of Joe Rogan, even though I disagree with him on some stuff. I think he's a good guy. But Jordan Peterson is... there's a lot of snake oil that dude is selling. He's just a good talker. The fact that he got many millennials to like think about religion again, like, oh, maybe I want to call myself a Christian. That's so sad. But his apologetics is next level Christian apologetics. But anyway, I don't know why I'm bothering to talk about Jordan Peterson endlessly. All right. So the next thing is, what should be spoken about? Because that's an important question. I saw an interesting clip. I think Business Insider may have done it, where they spoke about the last 5 presidents and what they said during the State of the Union. And the last 5 presidents said the State of the Union is strong. So from Reagan until Obama, every president says State of the Union is strong, State of the Union is strong, State of the Union is strong, State of the Union is strong. And I don't... It's like, it's laziness. That's why they say that, because they look to Reagan. Reagan was popular, and, they want to, stay in his mold because, ooh, he did things right. He had a high approval rating, even though he didn't do things right, and he shouldn't have had a high approval rating. But they say, okay, so we're just going to copy him because that's the tried and true successful way to do our State of the Union. So every president says State of the Union is strong, State of the Union is strong, State of the Union is strong. But that's that bullshit optimism that Reagan had of like, America is wonderful, and isn't it great? And Hillary tried that with the America is already great when Trump said make America great again. And that doesn't fly anymore, man. And actually, I think one of the main reasons why Trump did well and why he won the presidency is that he was actually pessimistic. He spoke about how we need to make America great again, meaning right now it's shitty and people are struggling out there. And that tapped into something where people were like, okay, I think he's right. And here's the problem with where Trump is now. Trump is he's caught between a rock and a hard place, because either he continues talking about how the country is shitty, which it is, in which case he's kind of, slamming himself because he's been in power for a year, or he does the turnaround and acts like everything is hunky-dory, which he's going to do, which is a lie, and that's not true. And then you lose touch, and you sound like the elitist that you are. You don't sound like, the populist that you were trying to be back then, at least with your rhetoric. So if I was president, or if I was advising a Democrat who is president, I would say, no, you're not going to do the bullshit. The State of the Union is strong. For example, Jimmy Carter didn't say that. Eisenhower didn't say that. Or was it Eisenhower or Ford? I think it was Ford didn't say that. And they're right. So, you should say in your State of the Union, hey, half of workers in America make $30,000 a year or less. That's not okay. The State of the Union is not strong. We need to fix that. Our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. That's not okay. We need to fix that. We're bombing 8 different countries. Why are we bombing 8 different countries? You need to fix that. And you talk about the negative things, because I think there's an optimism that comes out of pessimism, because you have to be able to identify a problem before you try to solve it. You can't just pretend everything is great, because if you pretend everything is great, you're lying, because things are not great. People are really fucking struggling. We're killing countless innocent civilians overseas. Our own soldiers are dying in these unnecessary wars. We're wasting trillions of dollars overseas while our infrastructure crumbles. Middle class hasn't seen a wage increase since the fucking 1980s. These are the things that need to be talked about, and you can talk about the solutions in a very straightforward way. Medicare for all, single payer. Medicare for all is single payer. Medicare for all, free college, New Deal, living wage, end the wars, so on and so forth. So I'm tired of the bullshit optimism. But I think there's going to be a lot of that bullshit optimism now, and I think he'll probably continue the streak of saying the State of the Union is strong. Okay, now I'm going to go to some of your questions here. Sorry, I already saw I missed a few. Economy, security, and pop-up ads on porn also tell Jank that social democracy, socialism, and liberalism are different ideologies. Somebody said that. The name is literally somebody. I might be doing a talk with Jank on Monday live on air for everybody about the Russia thing, so perhaps I will tell him that. And thank you for your contribution. The Natural Progressive. Bears Ears protests happened at Sundance Film Festival. No local news coverage. If HR 4532 passes, the reduction of the monument will be set in stone before the lawsuit can be decided. Talk about it. Bears Ears protest. Hey, the Natural Progressive. I'm really not sure what you're referring to there. And I apologize for that. Perhaps I missed an article that's important. But everybody's hearing about it now, and maybe they could read up on it. Bears Ears protests happened at Sundance Film Festival. No local news coverage. Is this like a pipeline or environmental thing? That would be my guess. Imad Orandi. You and Jimmy should not work for Katzenberg. TYT crowd-funded Nomiki Konst, then went and sold out to Katzenberg, who is the Mercer of the corporate Dems. I don't know who Katzenberg is. I do not. But TYT is their own entity, and they do plenty of things I disagree with. So, but I don't run TYT. I run Secular Talk. So I'm an affiliate in their network, but they have zero editorial control over what I do, zero control over us at all. So, I don't think you have to worry about Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski maintaining independence. We're as independent as it comes, and you could see that by the instances where we disagree with TYT, we certainly voice it. But yeah, perhaps there are some things, some donors that are unsavory characters. And when your media company hits a big enough size, unfortunately, that happens with a lot of people. That will never happen with Secular Talk, though. I can guarantee you that. Okay, guys, I'm trying to keep up. I'm sorry. You should go live after the shit show. No, I'm going to... Mind of the North sent that in. I'm going to be doing a normal breakdown on the Secular Talk Super Show. I'll have some clips from the State of the Union, and I'll break it down in detail. But I won't be doing it live right after the show because I'm going to need to watch it over and get the clips and all that stuff. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Justin Trudeau and marijuana legalization here in Canada? Justin Trudeau's he's like an Obama-like character. You know, a very centrist-y kind of guy. I know he's for TPP, for example, which is not good. He's just a neoliberal who has good marketing and a lot of people fooled that he's further left than he is. So, I mean, a guy like that is obviously better than Trump. That goes without saying, but he's not some sort of ideal on the left. That's for sure. What's your take on the reality of JFK assassination? Was there any conspiracy? I'm from India and I watch your channel regularly. You're doing a great job. Also, thanks for motivating me. All the best for your future endeavors. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know enough, but I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA was involved. That's apparently the one conspiracy for JFK that couldn't be disproven. CNN had an article about that, where they had somebody looking at all the different conspiracy theories. They were able to disprove a lot of them. They were able to disprove that it was like Fidel Castro or Russia or anything like that. But they said the one that they really couldn't disprove was the CIA one. So I'm relatively agnostic on the issue because I don't know enough about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some fuckery going on. Or maybe it could have just been Lee Harvey Oswald. Who the fuck knows? But it seems like there's some crazy shit going on behind the scenes. So maybe it was the CIA as well. I don't know. Drew, who of course does the Secular Talk cartoon series, sends in $100. Thanks, man. Wow. Just a little something for one magnificent motherfucker. Treat yourself to something nice for your B-Day or grab some cocaine to get through State of the Union. Thanks, man. And by the way, I will be live tweeting the State of the Union. I will be live tweeting it so we can all enjoy it together. And thank you so much for the contribution. That's very nice of you. And yes, tomorrow is my birthday. Today is my last day. My very last day at age 29. So I will be 30 tomorrow. Sad. Very sad. And some people are asking in the chat there, is there a Kyle and Corin? There's no Kyle and Corin tonight. There's no Kyle and Corin tonight. Tomorrow, I should say. Because at the time that we would record it, I will be live tweeting the State of the Union address. But fear not, Kyle and Corin will probably be back next week. I see, this is the problem, man. I already missed a few super chats. And I saw them sitting there. I was just about to click on them, but you just miss it. Can somebody email YouTube? I say that as if it's like that easy to get in touch with them. But like, people need to tell YouTube, we need to fucking get it so the super chats just stay up. Stay up, and then when I fucking exit out is when it goes away. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And as a result of that, I miss them when they're right in front of me. So I don't see any more super chats. Oh, would you do a private Q&A for Patreon supporters? That's a good question. I don't know how to set up the set it up so that I can do that. I don't know how we would only be able to do that. Oh shit, now we're getting a flurry of these. Holy shit. Did Zolgaz do anything wrong? I don't know who that is. And Commissar, what do you think about a net worth tax? Well, I'm not sure, but I was toying with the idea, and in fact, I polled my audience of the no billionaires tax. So in other words, everybody maxes out at $1 billion. And I don't think that's a crazy idea. Some people think that's a crazy idea, but that's because they're not stopping to conceive of how much $1 billion really fucking is. And my audience, 51% said yes, do the billionaires tax. And 49% said no, don't do it. But I think that's a debatable issue because there's a certain amount of wealth where when you have that much wealth, just having that much wealth is undermines a democratic system by definition because you have enough to buy the system, basically. So should there be a 100% tax on everything over $1 billion? That's something that you guys can debate. I think that's a very interesting and debatable question. Winder Co. paid Cenk Uygur $20 million and Russia bot story blew up afterwards. Winder is a front for Jeffrey Katzenberg, mega producer in Hollywood. They betrayed the people who donated to hire Nomiki. Again, I have no idea what most of that means, but on the issue of Russia, I do have some disagreements with Cenk Uygur, and I think on Monday, him and I will be discussing that live for everybody. Why don't you do more live show? Are you sure it's bigly and not big league? No, it actually is big league. But he says it and it sounds like bigly. Tremendous, believe me. I try to do these live things as much as possible. The secular talking smacks. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes you guys will, if you do them so much, you guys might get tired of them. So I stick to the show and having specific stories when I present them to you. And then you also get Kyle and Corin as the podcast separately, which is a little bit less political. But I like doing these things. These things are fun, man. I really like these things. Get Twitch alerts. It's easier to keep up. How do you feel about taking PragerU advertiser money on a regular basis? Okay, so this is like the 30th time I've explained this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again so everybody can understand it. The way the YouTube advertising system works is I speak to no advertisers. There's a giant buffer between me and the YouTube and Google advertising team. So what happens is somebody will go to YouTube and say, I want to buy ads in news and politics. And then they'll pay for the ads in news and politics. And then YouTube places it all throughout news and politics. So that means that sometimes you'll see ads on my channel for fucking Steven Crowder or Prager University, or you'll see ads for the Mormon Church or the Church of Scientology. And obviously I haven't had any conversations with those people. I despise all those people. But that's why the original system that YouTube had was kind of brilliant, because it made it so that the content creator was separate from all the advertisers who were paying them, basically. So I don't feel bad about it at all. In fact, if my enemies want to pay me for me to shit on them all day, by all means, please keep paying me. Love your channel, Kyle. Fuck YouTube and fuck modern media. Keep it up. Yes. I agree with you. And that's the thing, is YouTube kind of pulled the rug out from underneath us. And now we're in a permanently, a permanent lower level of monetization. We make about 60% less compared to what we used to make. And that's because our videos have been deprioritized. It's happened to me. It's happened to Jimmy Dore. It's happened to David Pakman. It's happened to many alternative or left-wing media outlets and right-wing media outlets, because we got swept up in this fake news madness, and we got faked up in the hysteria with Adpocalypse, where there were some ads that got on genuinely hateful content. So if you can, guys, patreon.com/secular talk. That means a lot. Even if you just give $2 a month, that helps so much. And thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate that. Dustin Brown, what's a short checklist of things we can do to help in the 2018 elections? I'm in a very rural area, and I'm just looking into getting involved in voter registration drives while also donating to candidates. So Dustin, another great question here. Join your local, Democratic Socialist group. Join the Green Party if you want to join the Green Party. Go help out with a campaign. Join Justice Democrats. Join Our Revolution. There's a lot of left-wing populist left groups that are fighting for the right things, and they always need help, and we always need people to fight, and just word of mouth and talking to people about it. All those things are really important. You often bring home the point that you have spent $1.5 trillion on the F-35 program. That's false. $1.5 trillion is the cost of the entire program from drawing board to grave. Anyway, great show and happy birthday. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I don't see how I'm wrong. You're saying what I try to say, that it costs $1.5 trillion. You're saying that's the entire program from drawing board to grave. Okay, fair enough. But that's still ridiculously high. That's still a ridiculously high number. Hello from Helen and Chris in Australia. I believe mandatory voting would allow people to get to the polls, stop only extremists voting, get young people to vote, and stop parties preventing minorities from voting. Thoughts? Yeah, mandatory voting. It's funny. We have like mandatory jury duty in this country, but the idea of mandatory voting is viewed as crazy. I don't think that's crazy at all. A lot of modern countries have mandatory voting. And if we were to do mandatory voting, yeah, you'd have better candidates win way more often, for sure. Because usually the higher the turnout, the more likely it is the left-wing candidate does well. The lower the turnout, the more it is the right-wing candidate does well. So that's certainly an idea that I'm open to. Kyle, can you please review and comment on Hillary Clinton interview in Wales? You can search it. It's on YouTube. I think I've seen that, but I will take a look at it again, because I think it was one of the few times she actually got a difficult question. Guys, I'm sorry if I miss you. There's a lot here. Fuck, marry, kill. Trump, Sarah Sanders, Kellyanne Conway. What? I mean, obviously kill Trump. Fuck Kellyanne Conway, marry Sarah Sanders, but I don't want to do any of that at all. But I played along anyway because you donated 10 pounds. Thank you. Liberalists, please respond. Sargon, the pro-Trump liberal. I don't know what that means. Do you believe Medicare for all would hurt part-time employees at Walmart because the company wouldn't have to pay for medical coverage? No, I think it would help everybody. Because right now in the U.S., oftentimes your insurance is tied to your employment. So a lot of people wait until they're 65 to retire when they want to retire 3 or 4 years earlier if they can. Because, oh my God, if I retire, I don't have insurance. I don't have health insurance, and then I can't afford it. So no, it actually allows for a lot more freedom for people to move from job to job, and it's a less expense on businesses if you do that. So it wins across the board. The only people that get hurt are the for-profit, cash-sucking middlemen, the rapacious insurance companies. How about a limit on how much politicians make per year? Politicians only make twice as much as the average working American. Millionaires and billionaires obviously can't represent their constituents. I'm not in favor of I don't know, like putting a cap on political income, but I am in favor of having publicly financed elections, because when you have publicly financed elections and no private financing of elections, regular people who will represent the working class much more will get elected. You don't know about TYT getting $20 million from a single entity. You know they hired Dan Rather instead of Lee Camp, etc., right? What does affiliate mean? Affiliate means I am a totally independent show that happens to be in their network. That's what affiliate means. And no, I don't know about TYT's finances. I know that they have raised money, both from the audience and from private entities. And as far as them hiring Dan Rather, yeah, I don't agree with that. I didn't talk about it, but it's not my company. It's not my company, so I don't get to make that call. But me personally, would I have hired Dan Rather? Fuck no. I think he's an 86-year-old establishment boring person, and he will spew banal talking points, and he's not worth a penny. That's just my take on it. Would you support taking the effective tax rate for each bracket slightly raised so small businesses would get a cut, but big businesses would pay their fair share? That, but end all loopholes and deductions for peeps over $75,000. I'm in favor of ending all loopholes and deductions either way, but you do have to tweak the tax rates when you do that. And yes, I would support a progressive tax rate that hits the rich more. And also, yeah, I like the idea of a progressive tax rate for businesses too, where small businesses don't pay as much as big businesses. I like that idea. I don't know if that's exactly what you were asking, but I hope that my answer addressed it. Kyle, we need the details about the Rick Shields and Pete Finch course vlog. Man, we haven't ironed out the details yet, but Pete and I have a tentative, agreement where we're going to play at some point. And I would be really excited to do that because I'm a golfer. There was one time I even wanted to be a pro, but I'm nowhere near good enough. And Peter Finch and Rick Shields, they're YouTube golfers, and I might do a course vlog with them at one point where we play golf, and I think it'll be a hell of a lot of fun. But there are no details to catch you up on, at least at this point. I wish there were, but there aren't yet. But maybe I'll talk to them soon and we'll iron out the details, whether it's me going there or them coming to the U.S. or whatever. But I'd love to play golf with them. Those guys are great. Trying to keep up, guys. I don't agree with mandatory vote. I don't agree with mandatory voting. I think we should make Election Day a national holiday. I do agree with that. So don't force people. Just give more people the option and ability to vote. Love the show, Kyle. Thank you very much. And yeah, I definitely agree with a national holiday. Mandatory voting, I'm not necessarily against. I'd have to think about it more. But yeah, I agree with you that the feeling of it is forcing somebody to do it feels wrong. But I mean, like, we also force people to go to jury duty. So it's like, well, it's weird that everybody's okay with that, but the idea of mandatory voting is seen as like wild when a lot of other modern nations do it. So I don't know. I definitely agree with a national holiday for voting, though. And I'm agnostic on mandatory voting, but I see the benefit of it. If you were solely responsible for distributing federal and state funding, 85% of this to one industry, education, healthcare, infrastructure, etc., remaining 15% distributed evenly among others, how would you invest that funding? Alicia, that's a little bit of a strange question because it's such a hypothetical where you're nailing me down as opposed to just letting me pick what percentage goes to which places. But 85% of the budget, education, healthcare, infrastructure, any of those, any of those is better than what we fucking have now. where of the discretionary budget, over 50% goes to the military. I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but I kind of just disagree with the framing of it. But all three of those are huge priorities for me: education, healthcare, and infrastructure. 2018 midterm predictions. Do Dems take House or Senate? How many JDs do you think will get elected? I don't know. I don't know, man. At this point, I feel like we're going to have mixed results for the Democrats in general. I think there will be some Justice Democrats who get elected. I don't know how many. Right now, I think it will be mixed results for the Democrats, though, in the election, because there's not a real clear message coming from the party on the things that matter. They're more focused on we hate Trump and doesn't Russia suck? And those are not arguments that are compelling to people that are going to make them come out and vote. But having said that, people really do despise Trump. He only has a 30-something% approval rating. So there will be a backlash to Trump. It's just a question of how much. Right now, I lean towards thinking it'll be mixed results, but it's certainly possible that there's a Democratic wave. And yeah, as far as the Justice Democrats go, there are going to be Justice Democratic candidates who win. As of right now, I don't know how many. I'd love to see them all win, but I doubt all of them will win. As of right now, I'd say less than 50%, but there will be some that win. Allison Hartson's race is one of the most important races in 2018 due to her background with Wolfpack, who she is replacing and who the other senator from Cali is. Thoughts on state of the race? I'm not involved enough to know the specifics as to what's going on in that race, but Allison Hartson has a real opportunity there because Feinstein is despised. She's despised. She's in the Democratic leadership, but she supported the Iraq War. She supported the Bush tax cut. She supports NSA spying. She's hawkish. So she's not good on the issues. So Allison Hartson can hammer away on the issues and win. But of course, corporate media is going to try to protect Feinstein. The Democratic Party establishment is going to try to protect Feinstein. But Allison Hartson has a real chance to win this. And she's a great candidate, right on all the issues, worked for Wolfpack and was successful in passing resolutions to get money out of politics through the different states for a national convention. So I think she can win, and I think it's one of the better shots that progressive candidates have. It'll be very effective if you do some shows with Jimmy Dore and Jordan Sheridan. What India and Pakistan should do for lasting peace. Do you do any other job, or is this full-time? Secular Talk is full-time, and thank you for wishing me happy birthday. And India and Pakistan, I don't know, man. I don't know. Diplomacy is obviously the answer, but how do you do that successfully? That's a really difficult question that doesn't lend itself well to a 3-minute soundbite on YouTube. And yeah, I may be, Jimmy, him and I have tried to get it where I go on his channel or he comes on my channel and we do a segment or something, but it always fell through because of our schedules or whatever. But him and I should get together soon and do something for everybody to see. Him and I talk on a regular basis. Like, we text on a regular basis. So yeah, it's about time we get together and do something on one of our channels. What do you think of proportional representation, i.e. the seats of a state are proportional to the total number of votes? Would remove gerrymandering. Yes, but usually for proportional representation, you have to vote not for a candidate, but for a party. So you'd really have to tweak the way the U.S. system works in order to do that one. I know you hear this a lot, but please debate someone like Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro. Most progressives, by ignoring them, are only making them stronger. We need to fight bad ideas with good ideas. Yeah, look, man, I mean, I struggle with this because I don't want to legitimize them. Those guys are so far out there and so wrong about so much that I honestly view it like I'm debating a Muslim fundamentalist about the nature of the reality, or I'm debating a creationist or something. Like, I don't want to legitimize them because they're so insanely wrong about so much shit that it's like a fucking annoyance. Like, really? I'm going to sit across from somebody who believes the earth is flat? That's genuinely how I feel about those people. So I don't want to legitimize them, but I do know that when I have debated right-wingers, you guys have loved it, and I've, just absolutely broken their spine over my knee and then beaten them with their own bones. So, yeah, I don't know. I have to think about it more. Maybe at some point I'll do that, but I really hate the idea of legitimizing those people. Westchester represent. Gotta rep our boring-ass county where we spent most of our weekends at a town center in the White Plains Galleria. Thank you, Jason. And yes, Westchester represent indeed. Why is it that people like Alex Jones, Ben Shapiro, Sargon, etc. have such a massive and vocal following? Are we devolving as a species? Love your show. Well, the right wing is having their moment right now. I mean, Trump's wave was nothing to scoff at, man. There were a lot of people who liked him. So yes, you did have a rise. People like Alex Jones and Shapiro admittedly being somewhat anti-Trump. Sargon, defending Trump quite often. But overall, I don't dislike a guy like Sargon, and I think it's somewhat unfair to lump him in with Alex Jones and Ben Shapiro. Although I do have massive disagreements with Sargon, don't get me wrong. But yeah, they're having their moment. But in time, those a lot of those shows, Alex Jones and Shapiro specifically, I think they'll kind of fall off because they're going to collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. You can only keep up your bullshit charade for so long if you don't really believe in anything. And certainly Alex Jones doesn't believe in anything. He's just Mr. Conspiracy guy who's hitched his wagon to Trump. Is that the saying? Hitch the wagon to Trump? And he's just a sycophant. And he's really unintelligent. And he's fucking losing his mind. Okay. Jesus Christ, I can't keep up with all this. Thank you, everybody. The more you pay for super chats, the longer they stay up. Oh, $20 equals 10 minutes, $10 equals 5 minutes. Also, thanks for the work you do for the issues and for what matters. You sexually attractive softball coach. I'm a lesbian softball coach. Get it right, son. But thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love doing the show. And it wouldn't be possible without all you guys and your wonderful contributions. Public referendum on abortion in Ireland. Contrast with America and lack on referendums on social issues. If we had referendums on social issues in America, we would be way more to the left on social issues. We would have already legalized marijuana. We probably would have legalized physician-assisted suicide at this point. So I think having the American people vote in a direct way, doing like direct democracy for certain issues, I think it would be great. And I think we would love the results. Why not just settle their differences, India, Pakistan, the old-fashioned way, cricket and field hockey? Perhaps they should do that. Zachary Tanner, when we get Medicare for all, what would you do with people work as processors for the insurance companies? Would they be out of a job? Zachary, that's a good question. So yes, you're going to have some people who work in the bloated bureaucracy for the for-profit, rapacious price gougers at the health insurance companies. Many of those people are going to lose jobs, but we also can set up a jobs program. You have a New Deal. So you have a lot of shovel-ready jobs, as they call them, construction jobs and whatnot. But even putting those aside, you also have green technology jobs too, because part of a New Deal is a Green New Deal. So we're getting off of fossil fuels, oil, gas. We have to do that. We don't have a choice because of climate change. Fucking Cape Town, South Africa is running out of water. So you transfer over to a green and renewable economy. And so there's going to be a whole new, industry blossoming where people can get jobs if they happen to lose them in an old industry that's going out of business. We can't not do Medicare for all because some people will lose jobs in the insurance companies, because that's like saying, hey, we can't do the telephone now because then people in the Morse code industry will lose their jobs. Well, that's too bad. The Morse code industry has been roundly defeated by a better product. Medicare for all is just a better system than a for-profit insurance system. So we're going to have some people lose jobs as part of the insurance companies, but overall we'll have net job creation because we'll do a New Deal and have a jobs program and give people jobs in other fields. Do you think Elizabeth Warren has a chance in 2020 over Bernie? No. Why do you view her as untrustworthy or progressives? Haven't read up on why. Because she didn't endorse Bernie in 2016. She agrees more with Bernie. Her ideology is more aligned with Bernie, but she didn't support him in 2016. So everybody's like, well, that's fucked up. She also voted to advance Ben Carson as a pick, Trump's pick for housing and urban development. In the end, she voted against him. She also voted for the $100 billion increase in military spending. So she has her downsides. She's one of the better members of the Senate, but she has her downsides. Of course, the best thing she did was the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has helped middle-class people all around this country. So she's a mixed bag, but Bernie is significantly better than she is. I feel Democrats pander for black votes, but when they get into office, they pass few policies to help us. You're correct. What are some policies and ways the party can regain the confidence of black voters? That's such a great question. First of all, end the drug war. It's used disproportionately to crack down on minority communities. Black people and white people use drugs at similar rates, but black people are arrested for it 4 times more often. You have to do criminal justice reform and end mandatory minimums, because mandatory minimums are used disproportionately against people of color. The death penalty. 4% of people on death row are innocent. And the death penalty, if a white person and a black person commit the same crime, black person's far more likely to get the death penalty. So if you eliminate the death penalty, do criminal justice reform and get rid of mandatory minimums, legalize, tax, and regulate drugs, and empty all the prisons and jails of nonviolent drug offenders, those are issues that really help communities of color. But beyond that, listen, Medicare for all is an issue that affects all Americans, but definitely affects communities of color too. Living wage, same thing. Many people of color are stuck in jobs where they're not making a living wage. So if the Democrats fought for unionization, pro-union bills, Medicare for all, living wage, free college is another one, criminal justice reform, all these issues help all Americans, but they also really help people of color, because oftentimes the system punishes people of color more, especially when it comes to criminal justice. So that's how Democrats can fight for communities of color. And by the way, at the same time, it's a win-win, because then you get votes from communities of color because you're doing the right thing, but you also get the white working class to back you too, because those same policies help the white working class. So this is why Democrats need to drop their obsession with identity politics. It's a dead end, and they use it to pander to get votes. And it's a way of saying, I'm a good person, without actually doing anything. If you do rhetoric that's in favor of black people and immigrants, but your policies don't help those communities, then you're just pandering. And they use identity politics as a diversion to not actually help all people. Sargon thinks Heather Heyer wasn't murdered. Fuck him. Damn. Well, if he believes that, indeed, fuck him. I don't know if he actually believes that, but if he believes that, that's not okay. Andy P, with the prevalence of blockchain technology and its inherent unhackability, I am a CISO. Should we have over internet elections now where we can have a true democracy, or do you think it's not feasible? Maybe in the long run, something like that is feasible, but I don't think right now that we can do that or even should do that, because I don't know. I don't trust the system as it is now, but it's not like I would trust it more if it was online. And I know you say it's not hackable, but I don't know. It's like, it reminds me of the issue of modernizing the nuclear weapons. If you modernize the nuclear weapons, you actually make them less safe. Right now, it's run on floppy disks, which are so outdated that it's actually a lot more safe, which is a weird catch-22. But I feel like voting is a similar thing. But again, I don't think the system has such integrity at the moment, but I would be scared moving to voting online, even though that probably is in the cards way down the road. But remember, private companies are often directly involved with voting, which is a problem. That shouldn't be private by any stretch of the imagination. And thank you for your donation, Andy. Appreciate it. Balthazar, that's an awesome name. Thoughts on why Cenk keeps pandering to neo-libs, like when he equated Franken's resignation to Trump's. Franken's resignation brings us a neoliberal who gets voted out. Trump's resignation, Pence. Yeah, look, Cenk is, I think he's a little bit to the right of myself and of Jimmy Dore. And there are some issues where there's a rift on the left where, TYT might represent a more mainstream view of certain issues, like the Russia issue, where you get a little bit of a different, more alternative, probably further left take from somebody like myself or Jimmy Dore. So, there's not, none of us walk in unison. There's plenty of disagreement among the left and also within TYT and the broader TYT network. So I don't know. You'd have to ask Cenk why he thinks the things that he thinks. I'm sure he has some reason that would be interesting to all of us. it's not as simple as, oh, he's some sort of a sellout. I think he just, in my opinion, I think he's just wrong on certain issues. But again, I think him and I are going to be talking about the Russia thing on Monday. So stay tuned for that. That should be an interesting conversation. Good job, bro. Keep it up. Thank you, Vladimir. $10. The Anti-Patriot. I like that name. Does it really make sense to push labor for income in a world of increasing automation? Large companies will just invest in robots to do the job cheaper if the minimum wage is increased to $15 an hour. Why not universal income? So that's a great question. First of all, you say we'll just invest in robots to do the job cheaper. Well, no, we're moving towards automation either way. So I don't buy the argument that, oh, if you force a living wage, then they're going to transfer to automation. No, they're going to transfer to automation no matter what. That's inevitable. But first of all, in the meantime, we should have a living wage. But to answer the latter part of your question there, in the long run, we are going to have to make a decision as a society. We are going to have automation for virtually every job. And once we hit that point, then the question is, well, who do we let reap the benefits of all the labor being done by the robots, basically, by the machines, if you will? I know I sound like an old man when I say that. And the answer is you would need to like assign individuals a machine or a robot or an artificial intelligence entity that does all of your work for you and you reap the benefits. So that's what we're going to have to do in the long run. But in the meantime, yeah, we need to have a living wage. You floated the idea of universal basic income. That's something I'm open to, although I do personally, I think a negative income tax rate makes more sense. So in other words, you give the money to the people who need it. I don't think you need to give money to fucking Bill Gates or mega rich people to give them a basic income. They already have way more than they'll ever need. So you tax the shit out of them and you redistribute the money to poor people. But yeah, we're going to move towards automation anyway, and we are going to have to deal with the fallout of that. We can live in a dystopian future where everybody's fucking, there's wars and it can look a lot like fucking Terminator where we're fighting robots and shit. Or you can have people assigned robots or machines that do the work for them and they reap the benefits of it. So I hope that answered your question. There's a section you can click on that lets you read all the super chats you missed. Ooh. Search around on the chat section for it. Okay. I can't search now because then I'm going to miss even more super chats if I don't find it, but I will do that because thank you for letting me know. What would happen? Wait. Thoughts on a tax bracket above $1 billion where you are taxed over 100% of your income to pay for all the breaks and loopholes used in the past. Again, that's what I did the poll on. Do people favor a 100% tax for everything over $1 billion? So in other words, you max out at $1 billion. I think that's a debatable issue because how the fuck can anybody spend $1 billion? Some people do, but that amount of wealth threatens the stability of a country just by its nature. You could buy the system. So that's a debatable issue. I don't support over 100% tax. I support a progressive tax system. So the lower you make, the less you're taxed. The higher you make, the more you're taxed. And that goes all the way up. And then, yeah, the idea is some people like the idea of tax 100% over $1 billion. Certainly, if we're not taxing 100% over $1 billion, we should be taxing at least 80% over $1 billion. I would have a much more progressive tax rate. Because right now, like, for example, Jeff Bezos has over $100 billion. He made $2 billion in 1 week, guys. In 1 week recently when he launched the new Amazon Go product or whatever the fuck it's called. That's not okay. Half the country makes $30,000 a year or less. Our infrastructure gets a grade of D+. We have millions of people without health insurance. You can't make $2 billion when that's the system and act like that has nothing to do with the system. Yes, your wealth is making other people poor, especially since he doesn't even pay his people a living wage. Love your channel, Kyle. Fuck YouTube. Oh, I already did that one. The prevalence of blockchain, yada, yada. Did that one. Doesn't really make sense. So did that one. What would happen in the event of a one-state solution, and what will it take for liberal Zionists to get on board? So I have to say, for the longest time, I was in favor of a two-state solution. But now with the Jerusalem announcement, I know it's a total pipe dream. It's never going to fucking happen. So yeah, the answer is a one-state solution, which it means equal rights for Palestinians and Israelis. But here's the problem. That's going to be so messy for so long. Because they're going to hate each other, because for the longest amount of time, Israelis have been stealing the Palestinians' land, and they have deep differences ethnically, culturally, religiously. So you have to do a one-state solution and give equal rights, but it's going to be a long fight to get those equal rights, because who the fuck thinks Netanyahu and the Likud government in Israel are going to willingly give Arabs and Palestinians equal rights like that? It's going to be a giant fight, and it's going to take a tremendous amount of international pressure. So I think it's hard to sell the idea of a one-state solution because everybody knows how messy it's going to be, but now there's no other option. And how do you do representation? Like, are you going to call it Israel, or are you going to call it Palestine? Are you going to call it Israel-Palestine? Are you going to, how are you going to have quotas of, you have to have X amount of Israelis in the government and X amount of Palestinians in the government? I don't know. I mean, these are all really hard questions that need to be answered. And now I know the two-state solution is totally dead. So there's no other choice but a one-state solution. Thanks for answering. You're great. Just have a mother-in-law that works for the hospital, and I haven't had an answer for that. I agree it will happen specifically after tonight with Bernie's speech. Oh, yeah, by the way, guys, Bernie is giving a response to the State of the Union, which is great because he, of course, will focus on policy substance. Sargon went on a live stream with Millennial Woes. This guy really does not like Sargon. A self-described white nationalist. Sargon was the one who brought up the conspiracy theory that she was not murdered. Okay. There you have it. What do you think about the Philip DeFranco show? I've never watched Philip DeFranco, and I haven't watched the H3 podcast either. I hate it when I have to give an anticlimactic answer. And that's what that was. That was an anticlimactic answer. I haven't watched Philip DeFranco. I haven't watched the H3 podcast. Okay, let's see. Did I miss anything? No. Well, all the ones here I didn't miss. Okay, I gotta go back. I see a new one came in. I know you haven't agreed with this before, but with the current Democratic establishment, isn't it better in the long run to form the Social Democratic Party of America? From Scary Commie Sweden. Okay, so that's a good question. Let me try to answer that. I'm in favor of every way possible to get populist left policies implemented. I don't care how you do it. If somehow magically the Green Party wins 50% of the country, great, fine. If Democratic Socialists do it, great, fine. If the Democratic Party does it, great, fine. You just have to, any way you actually win, that's what I care about. So right now, what I would argue for people to do is you need to be registered as a Democrat, because if you're not, you're going to give up your primary vote. And that's what happened with Bernie. In New York, people weren't registered as Democrats. Independents couldn't vote in the closed primary. And then they weren't allowed to vote for Bernie, and then Hillary won in New York. So you have to, even though it sucks, believe me, I don't want to be a registered Democrat either, but I am a registered Democrat because I need to vote in primaries, because that's the most important vote I cast. And if I'm not registered as a Democrat, I can't cast that vote. So I would register as a Democrat in all states that don't have open primaries. You have to do it. But you can also do that and then join Democratic Socialists if you want to, and join whatever other group that's a more independent group or third-party group or whatever it is. You could do both those things. But all I say is don't check out of the system, because if you're not in the system, then there's no way progressive ideas win. So fight it from all angles. That's my idea. That's what I'm in favor of. So unfortunately, I'm in New York. I have to be registered as a Democrat. But, my sympathies lie with social democracy and libertarian left ideas, populist left ideas. And I think everybody knows that. I hope that answered your question. If Bernie wins in 2020, who would you want as VP? Warren, Turner, Gabbard, others? If he loses the nomination, who would you support, Dems or Greens? It depends who he loses the nomination to if he were to lose. So I can't really answer that second part of the question. But yes, I would prefer Nina Turner as my first choice for vice president, then Tulsi Gabbard, then Elizabeth Warren. But all three of the ones that you gave are acceptable. All three of them are acceptable, and all three of them are winning tickets. So that's awesome. How can progressives appeal to constituents in socially conservative areas without alienating them on hot-button topics like abortion? This demographic may agree on economic issues but disagree on certain social issues. That's a great question. But the answer is very simple. Focus on the economic issues. If you are in a socially conservative area, just don't talk about the social issues. That's it. That's all you have to do. But everybody agrees. The overwhelming majority of Americans want a Medicare for all system, want free college, want a living wage, want a New Deal. And you could even throw in ending the wars, and even very Republican areas are in favor of ending the wars. That's one of the reasons why Trump won. So those 5 issues right there, run on those issues. Don't touch marijuana, even though you probably would win on that issue too. Don't touch abortion. Don't touch any of these social issues. Just focus on those issues and you will win for sure. Do you agree with using the capital gains tax as an incentive if it only applied to people who invested in smaller businesses, creation of smaller businesses? No, I think the capital gains tax should be tied to the income tax rate, because if you don't tie it to the income tax rate, then you're always going to have a massive loophole where people who invest for a living pay way less in taxes than somebody who works for a living, like a construction worker or a teacher or an accountant or a regular person doing a job. So you should tie the capital gains rate to the income tax rate. But in terms of small businesses, I would have a lower business tax. I would have a lower business tax for them than I do for big businesses. I would have a progressive business tax rate where big businesses pay more. Hi, Kyle. I'm a huge fan living in Eastern Kentucky where Bevin is raping us daily. How do we get our beliefs out in states like Kentucky? We had an approximate 26% voter turnout for Bevin's election. That's another great question. In places like Kentucky, the Democrats need to hammer away on the populist left economic issues. Medicare for all, living wage, free college, New Deal. Those are things that the Democrats could sweep in places like that if they made that argument. And just in the Republican states, just leave the social issues alone. That's it. Just leave the social issues alone, and then you will, you'll win. You'll win for sure. And in the Democratic areas, run on all the same economic populism, but then you also sprinkle in legalize marijuana, talk about how much you are, in favor of criminal justice reform, ending the drug war, and you could touch on social issues in those Democratic areas. Do you think Bernie Warren ticket would help the Bernie campaign round up more Democrats? I think they already have as many as they need. Her alliance to Clinton could pressure the media not to be totally against the Bernie camp. Yes. So there's a strategic reason to pick an Elizabeth Warren for a VP, because you kind of, swoop into the campaign the few remaining 8% of Democrats who are against Bernie Sanders, because you say, hey, identity politics, she's female, and they'll love that. And then also she has enough credentials in populist circles, like actual left-wing circles, and establishment circles where you might get the tentative support of people who you'd be surprised about. What is your opinion on the abolition of political parties in the United States, as George Washington saw them as a means to derail or deter democracy? Would it hinder progress or accelerate it? I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like people are kind of tribal by their nature, so they gravitate to forming their own groups anyway. So even if you got rid of political parties, you would have factions develop. So it's almost a moot point in that argument, because there are going to be factions that develop anyway. And I think having the parties just kind of allows people to have a label to throw on the fact that they agree with certain people more than other people. So I don't know the effect of that in the long run, if it would help or hurt, or if there would be no change. You should do a new Sargon talk to clear some air. Also, would you go on Andy Warski or debate Sticks and Hammer? I don't even know how to say that guy's name. Love the show. From Norway. Okay, so I don't know anything about that Sticks and Hammer guy or whatever, other than that he apparently is a Holocaust denier. Or at the very least, he fucking concern trolls and nuance trolls all day about the specifics of the Holocaust. So no, I'm not going to talk to that guy. And he's also, he creeps me out. He does a show with no shirt. I don't know why. He weighs about 76 pounds. He just strikes me as a weird dude. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. All I know is that he does Holocaust denial. So no, I'm not going to talk to that guy. Andy Warski. No, I'm not going to talk to that guy. He gave a smooth hand job to Richard Spencer on his channel. And he's got a co-host who's another fucking, white nationalist, white supremacist edgelord who thinks he's cool. How did that become fucking cool? Like, oh man, don't you hate minorities? Yeah, I hate minorities. Oh, aren't we so cool? It's like, what the fuck? You guys are up your own ass in your internet bubbles if you are part of some like alt-right, group and you think you're cool. You're the biggest fucking losers on the planet. Who does that? Sits around all day and jerks themselves off about how much better you think you are than other ethnicities. So no, I wouldn't talk to Warski. I wouldn't talk to the Sticks and Hammer guy. They can go fuck themselves. Sargon, yeah, potentially I talk to him again, but I have a busy schedule and I've already spoken to him 4 or 5 times, and I think we've pretty much cleared the air with everything we believe in. So maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Do you agree with a dual minimum wage system where there is a full-time wage of $15 an hour and a separate minimum wage for part-time workers who may or may not be able to work for less? No, I think you should have a living wage across the board. In fact, I would do a no exception to the minimum wage law, where, like, you know how waiters and waitresses, for example, there's an exception to the minimum wage law where they get paid less than minimum wage. People who work commission jobs, like salesmen, they get paid less than minimum wage in many instances. I would make it so everybody has to get paid a living wage. I don't care if you're part-time. I don't care if you're full-time. I don't care any of that stuff. You have to get paid a living wage. Thoughts on Beto O'Rourke versus Lion Ted in the 2018 Senate race? O'Rourke's taking no PAC money and supports Medicare for all. Ted Cruz is a smarmy scumbag, a corporate sellout, and a Christian fundamentalist, and he can go fuck himself with the giant cactus. And yes, I support any of his opponents. I guess Beto O'Rourke is the one, but I don't... Isn't there another opponent, like a third opponent? There may or may not be. I'm not well-versed on that particular race, but if I'm voting there, yes, I am voting against Ted Cruz, and if the candidate takes no corporate PAC money and is for Medicare for all, then yes, I would definitely support that candidate as well. He is a Holocaust denier, by the way. Exactly, yeah, the sticks and hammer twig boy, shirtless for no reason guy. Fuck that guy. How do you get an audience? How does he get an audience sitting there looking like a fucking rock star from 1972 who has AIDS? Sorry, I know I'm being a dick, and I know that I currently look like a gay sailor, so I'm throwing stones in a glass house here, but that guy's weird, dude. You need to show USA universal health care. The reason police brutality becomes so public is due to video footage. Come to Australia and show people. Yes, Hunter, that's a great point. Bernie actually did that. He went to Canada. He showed them how great the system was. But you're right. We need to do, like, there needs to be fucking sting operations where you go into a shitty hospital in the US and show how terrible it is. They're doing patient dumping where they have patients who are barely conscious out there in their gowns in freezing cold weather. We just covered that story recently. But if you take cameras to fucking Australia or France or the UK and you see how great it is, people go, oh shit, we should do this. Yes, you should. Can progressives flood both party primaries with the Sam Ronan strategy and change parties post the elections using gerrymandering to their advantage and not have to take over Dems? I need secular talk merch. Maybe we'll do a shirt drive again soon. I don't disagree with what Sam Ronan is doing. He's running as a left-wing Republican. I kind of like that idea. That's kind of cool. But if I was his advisor, I would tell him up front, you better not bring up social issues if you're running as a left-wing Republican. You have to just economic populism if you're running as a Republican. If you're running as a Republican, but you're a left-winger, just economic issues, and then you can win. But I kind of like that idea. That's cool. But you're right. We should flood both parties and just have a revolution of these policies. Are you MGTOW? I don't know what that means. And who's got a bigger penis, you or David Pakman? Well, Dave, sorry, I have to tell everybody, obviously my penis is bigger. But that's not because your penis is small, Dave. It's because my penis is bigger than everybody's penis. That's a fact. And I don't know what MGTOW means. I'm a normie. I don't know anything about the fucking the lingo that the cool kids use on the internet. I'm so out of touch with the cool kids. Apparently, there's a lot of cool kids who think white nationalism is cool now. And a dude who looks like he has AIDS and is a 1972 rock star who wears no shirt and talks, that guy's cool. If you guys think that guy's cool, I don't want to be cool. Fuck that. I don't want to be cool. What's your opinion on YouTube's Prager University ads being advertised occasionally on your videos? So again, Elliot, I just spoke about this, and I would say go back and watch this live stream again when I'm done, because I already spoke about exactly how the ad system works on YouTube, and exactly why it's actually a good thing that those assholes are paying me. But I'm not going to comment on it further because I already did earlier in this same stream. Did you hear about the Satanists that successfully argued in court that Missouri's abortion laws violated their religious freedom? No, I didn't hear that. But that's amazing. They're using the religious freedom argument to their own advantage. So Satanists are not actually Satanists. They're just non-religious people who are kind of trolling religious people, religious fundamentalists who want to have a theocracy. But it's good that they got the right policies, but I just wish that courts would accurately state religion is separate from the government. We don't have a theocracy. We shouldn't be making any decisions based on anybody's religion, whether I agree or disagree with that religion. But that's a funny story. I should look that one up. I've noticed that you cover atheism, religious issues less than you used to. Do I? I don't know. In today's political climate, do you think atheists still face as much adversity as they used to? Has your opinion on this topic changed at all? No, I think atheists around the world are pretty persecuted. I mean, there's literally countries where they kill you if you're atheist, and other countries where they lock you up if you're atheist. And to this day, when you read polls in the U.S., people never want their daughter or son to marry an atheist. In fact, they poll lower than any other group, including Muslims. And we know that America, by and large, is not very fond of Muslims. And people tend to polls show people equate atheism with immorality. So if you say, hey, I'm an atheist, they hear, I don't believe in right and wrong, which is just preposterous. So if I'm not covering them as much, it's just because I'm not coming across those stories as much. But whenever I see an issue that's related to religion and atheism and I'm interested in it, I will cover it. So that's not on purpose. But no, I don't think my opinion has changed on that topic overall. Can the U.S. pull back from being sole superpower without China just taking our place, or just creating an unstable multipolar world like we had pre-World War I? That's a good question. I think that even if you were to cut U.S. military bases 50% and cut U.S. military spending 50%, we would still have the largest military in the world, and there would be no vacuum for anybody to fill. That's my short answer to that question. Even here in Sweden, when I mentioned Bernie 2020, to those I know, people just think that he'll be too old. He would be 79 then, older than any POTUS at their inauguration. Is it really not a concern? Well, it's not a concern because Donald Trump is also really old. He's 4 years younger than Bernie. Joe Biden, who's considered the second front runner, is only 1 year younger than Bernie. Elizabeth Warren is also in her 70s. So look, the fact is he's best on policies. All I care about are policies. So I don't care if they send me a neoliberal who's fucking 46. That guy or girl can go fuck himself or herself. So that's all I care about is policies. And his policies are the best. So I can overlook his age since that's the case. And all the other front runners are also old too. So it's kind of a wash if you ask me. Patricia, thank you for the smiley face. Globe World Skeptic. In Norway, the minimum wage is lower for people under 18, 16, and apprentices. Would you support that? No, I don't. I support a living wage across the board. But I do know that some Scandinavian countries don't even have a minimum wage. But what they do have is basically really strong unions that negotiate wages for everybody that are way higher than even just a basic living wage. I'm missing so many. What is your opinion on syndicalism, i.e. Chomsky's ideal system? I read Chomsky on anarchism when I was younger. I wasn't ready for that book yet. I was too dumb and too young to read it, but I read it. And, you know, I'm not as far left-wing as Noam Chomsky. I'm a boring social democrat. I believe in like the Scandinavian type systems. I think they're great. But I like hearing out arguments to the left of me because there's a lot of interesting discourse happening to the left of me. To people who are really on the left, like Adam Johnson, for example, of FAIR, I think he looks at me like a almost like a right winger. Like, ugh, like they think I'm a gross moderate, who's like even too sympathetic to capitalism, for example. But no, I'm in favor. Like Professor Richard Wolff brings up some good points about democracy in the workplace. Yeah, I'm in favor of that. But I'm also in favor of if people want to just show up and clock in and have a boss, and if somebody wants to run a business and have people who work under them. Like I'm fine with that too. I feel like people like Richard Wolff might say, no, we should ban that and have democracy in every workplace. I think that goes too far. And I think Chomsky might be a little too utopian in his ideology, where he thinks the innate human nature of people is good. So if you just get rid of the hierarchical structures, everybody will flourish. But no, I think that human nature is a mixed bag. People are good and bad. And some hierarchy is okay and can be justified, just not the amount of hierarchy we have in the system now and how grotesque it is. But Chomsky's a little to the left of me with his ideal system, I would say. When are you coming to Killicali, Sacramento to be exact? Also, what's your thoughts on Syria's future? That sweater will trigger Mike Pence. I don't know. I don't have any plans. I'm scared to death of flying. I hate flying. I really hate it with every fiber of my being. My thoughts on Syria's future is the United States should stay the fuck out, and the Syrian people should determine their future. And the Syrian people should determine their future not through guns and trying to topple a government with a coup. They should do it through other means. So, I don't want jihadists to take over Syria. That's my basic take on it. And as of right now, Assad is a lesser of two evils kind of thing. And I support the Syrian people having a right to self-determination, but doing it and not creating a power vacuum that has jihadists fill it. Basic income, but separate a tax system that take more than what it gives to people who don't need it. Hell, be one with negative income tax. Universality is as important in healthcare as in housing. There's a lot there that I'm not fully digesting. But yeah, I generally prefer universal programs over targeted ones. But I guess one area where I don't is negative income tax versus universal basic income. But I could be talked into universal basic income. I just haven't been talked into it yet. I would love to see a Maslow constitutional amendment. A right to water, food, clothing, education, information, living wage, and housing. USA has enough money to do that. Yeah, you know, Mike, that's Michael McAllister who says that. It's maddening to me that no politician, no national politician talks about homelessness, because it costs $30,000 a year to leave homeless people on the street. It costs $10,000 a year to give them a roof over their head. So it's the correct thing to do to eliminate homelessness from a moral perspective, which is perhaps the most important perspective, but also from a fiscal perspective. So even if you're a conservative who doesn't care about the well-being of these people, well, you go, okay, but you save taxpayers money if you put a roof over their head. So the fact that we don't have any politicians talking about that is fucking frustrating beyond imagination. And the reason for that is poor people or homeless people don't have a lobby. They don't have big moneyed interests fighting for them, so nobody talks about it, which is just fucking terrible. But yeah, I like FDR's second Bill of Rights. I thought was awesome. Hey, Kyle, what are your thoughts on realism, specifically Mearsheimer's version of realism? I don't know Mearsheimer. I haven't read him, so I can't really comment on that. If Bernie were to become president, do you think he could govern, considering he'll have corporate Democrats and Republicans against him? He better get ready to go balls to the wall if he gets elected, because you're right. There's going to be such a strong... You want to talk about resistance. Bernie will get strong resistance from Republicans and half of his party, if not more, half the Democrats. So I do think he can govern, though. And he could do a lot of executive orders, which would be great. FDR did a lot of executive orders. People don't talk about that, but he did a lot of executive orders, and most of them were good. So I think he could get a lot accomplished, but it won't be as much as we would like to see him accomplish, and it will be because of the resistance against him. But Bernie will also have the people behind him big time. Have you seen the story on Amazon, Berkshire, and JP Morgan creating their own healthcare company to provide employees with healthcare? Thoughts? I saw the headline. I didn't read the articles, but there's something that strikes me in my gut as wrong and not good about that, because it's just more of these mega mergers, and that really fucks over working people every time there's mega mergers. Does your milkshake bring all the boys to the yard? Cameron, my milkshake brings all the girls to the yard, and my milkshake brings all the Wookiees to the yard. I don't really know what that means, but I wanted to say Wookiee, so I said that. Jordan says, hi, Kyle. Happy early birthday. Yes, tomorrow is my birthday, and I turn 30, which is sad. Sad. Please help me understand why my aunt is freaking out. Do you guys say aunt or aunt? Why my aunt is freaking out, screaming, Donald Trump refuses to implement Russia sanctions. Huh? So there's a story that broke last night about how one of the new rounds of sanctions, the State Department released a statement where they said, yeah, we're gonna not really gonna implement all these, but they couched it and they weren't very straightforward about it, and people are freaking out and saying, see, Putin puppet. But what they're not bringing up is that on Friday, just this past Friday, they implemented a new round of sanctions and announced a new round of sanctions over Crimea. So they increased sanctions on Friday don't do other sanctions for the election meddling on Monday. And everybody's ignoring the first part, that they did the sanctions on Friday, and only harping on the second part, because now the bipartisan consensus in this country is, among a lot of Republicans, but a lot of corporate Democrats too, is obviously we should sanction Russia out the wazoo, and we should arm rebels in Ukraine, and we should do NATO buildup on Russia's border. And this is probably what annoys me more than anything about this Russia hysteria, is that Democrats are resisting Trump from the right. So they want a NATO buildup of troops on Russia's border. They want that. Now they want to arm rebels in Ukraine. By the way, many of those rebels are literal neo-Nazis. And I'm not in favor of those policies. I'm not in favor of a NATO buildup on Russia's border. I'm in favor of the Crimea sanctions, but I'm not in favor of the election meddling sanctions, because there's no evidence of the election meddling to begin with, other than fucking Twitter bots, which I don't care about. So that's what frustrates me about this, is it's making Democrats support right-wing policies, and I don't support those right-wing policies. Do you think far-left social justice warriors have hurt the left because they've made pseudo-intellectuals like Jordan B. Peterson famous? Yes, I do, Jazzy. Yes, I do. And there are a lot of fans of my show who will not like it when I bring that up, and they disagree with me for a variety of reasons. But I really do believe that. And I wouldn't call them far-left social justice warriors. I would call them authoritarian left social justice warriors, because that's what they are at their core. Anybody who wants to control speech of other people and ban conservative talkers from college campuses and, are hyper-focused on identity politics and issues like that, yeah, those are social justice warriors, and they're authoritarians before they're anything else. And yes, what's happened is you've allowed some people on the right to step up and say, oh, I'm against censoring speakers on college campuses. So now I'm obviously such an intellectual. And along with that, let me give you a heaping dose of, Christian apologetics in the case of Jordan Peterson. And let me give you a bunch of, pseudo scientific bullshit like Jordan Peterson does. And that's a shame, because listen, the bar for intellectual has to be more than just, I oppose social justice warriors. It's got to be more than that, because that's easy. That's so fucking easy. And oftentimes what you find is the same people who like to rip social justice warriors, they'll ignore all of the social justice warriors on the right. Donald Trump is a right-wing social justice warrior. This is a guy who sued Bill Maher over a joke. He threatened to sue The Onion over a joke. He rails against, he wants people fired for kneeling during the national anthem in fucking football. That's nothing but a nonviolent protest and a free expression. And Trump wants to fire him because he's triggered. He needs his safe space where all you have is bullshit, fake patriotism all day long. So there are a lot of right-wing social justice warriors who pretend like they're against the concept of social justice warriorism. But really, they just want to protect their speech and rail against left-wing speech. So that's my little spiel on that. But yes, I do think it's unfortunate that there are some social justice warriors on the left who open the door for guys like Jordan Peterson. Favorite drill tweet. I like them all because they don't make sense. And that's what I love the most about them. 2 years on, what are your thoughts on Brexit? Love the show from Scotland. I don't know. I was kind of agnostic on Brexit all along. I was kind of agnostic about it because I see there's left-wing arguments for Brexit, but I think the bulk of the arguments that won out were right-wing arguments for Brexit that were not true. So, but I do think Brexit is a mixed bag. And I'm not sure what to make of it. And I'm not sure, I haven't seen many articles on what's happened since Brexit and what steps have been taken. So I need to read up more on it to comment on it. Hey, Kyle, thanks for inspiring me to leave my boring 9-to-5 study politics in university. When are you coming to the UK? As soon as I get over my fear of planes. And if I come to the UK, I will be playing golf with Peter Finch and maybe Rick Shields as well. YouTube golfers. 2 years on, what are your thoughts on Brexit? Did that favorite drill tweet. Have you heard the bird rule defense of why tax cuts aren't permanent? What are your thoughts? I haven't heard that. So unfortunately, I have no thoughts. I hate the anticlimactic answers. I'm sorry, guys. Keep up the great work of real stories and policies. What are your thoughts on voting at 16? What are your thoughts on voting at 16 like here in Scotland? The Morgan interview with Trump. I haven't seen the Morgan interview with Trump yet, though I do plan on watching that. And are you asking me if people should be able to vote at 16, I say yes. I say yes. And if you make the argument, well, but people at 16 are dumb, I got news for you. People are dumb at 49. That's not a reason they shouldn't be able to vote. So I'd say yes for voting at 16. The left should start inviting all sex is rape feminists and Nation of Islam people to college campuses to piss off the right. This is all optics. That's a great point, and I agree with that. All the people who say, I can't believe you're shutting down Milo Yiannopoulos' speech. All I care about is free speech. Invite a leader of Antifa to speak at a college campus and watch how quickly they flip their opinion. Now, I'm consistent on this, and most of the people in my audience are consistent on this. I actually want free speech across the board. But you'll find the left-wing social justice warriors don't want that, but the right-wing social justice warriors don't want that either. Yes, invite Nation of Islam people and third-wave feminists to give speeches. All of a sudden, they're going to be against free speech. Great point. What are your opinions on compulsory voting? We spoke about that earlier. And do you think it can be implemented in the United States? I don't know if it can be implemented in the United States, but I have mixed feelings on it, and I spoke about that earlier in the stream. If you want to watch it over, you can see me talk about that in detail. Debate destiny on responsible platforming, Twitter bans, or Justice Democrats. I don't know who Destiny is. I don't know who that is. And I don't usually like debates anyway, so that's probably not going to happen. Although I might at some point in the future debate the people who need to be taken down the most. You say everything should be allowed at 16. Is there science to back this up? Why do you believe this? Listen, I believe that because... So you have to draw a clean line somewhere, right? Like there are certain things that we all agree kids should not be involved with, you know? Porn, for example, obvious, right? So you have to draw a clean line somewhere, and I think we draw that line too late. That's my only reasoning. And, you know, people who, like, we have age of consent laws vary throughout the country, but it's like 18 in a bunch of states, 17 in others, but 16 in some. I just think 16 is closest to realistic. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I think I was like in 6th or 7th grade when I first started doing stuff sexually with somebody my age, of course. So that's even younger than 16. So I think by 16, I might even be a little too strict here. But yeah, 16 is like, that just seems to me to make the most sense. But it is subjective and it is my opinion. And it's based a lot on personal experience. Thoughts on how to convince neoliberals to stop accepting red baiting arguments and MSNBC crap and being able to shift more progressive. Silver lining, court can be in sessions over trumped up charges. I think, well, again, I'm probably going to talk to Cenk Uygur about this on Monday for everybody to see on Russia. So you'll see my answer to that then by the points I make to Cenk Uygur about the issue. Hey, Kyle, follow me on Twitter, Keith Chappett. Keith, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably not going to remember how to spell that or remember to do that. But thank you for the donation. That's very sweet of you. I appreciate it. And thank everybody for your donations. It's very nice of you. Do you have any specific views on Leon Trotsky and his views? No. I've read the Communist Manifesto. That's not Trotsky. And I've read other parts of Marx. I've never read all of Das Kapital. That's a huge undertaking. But my general take on communism and actually just Marxism and Karl Marx is I think a lot of his critiques of capitalism are spot on. But I don't agree with many of his solutions. That's my little summation. And that's unfortunately as good as I could do. But if people want to send me recommendations for books, more than happy to take a look. And perhaps Trotsky will be in those recommendations. I am a Mormon, but I love your videos. I agree with almost everything you say, aside from guns and certain economic areas. I like to call myself a libertarian. That's awesome. Thank you, 28 days later. I like your name as well. Constantine Hampers. If Trump lays out an infrastructure plan tonight, do you think enough Republicans and corporate Dems will get behind it? Well, the answer is no, number one. But number two, you're not going to want them to get behind it because all of the infrastructure plans that have been floated thus far they're scams. It's a ruse for privatization. So one of the things is, Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin, these are Goldman Sachs top officials who are in Trump's administration. And they floated the idea of, we're going to upgrade our infrastructure, but in the process of doing that, they're privatizing large swaths of our infrastructure and handing it over to Goldman Sachs. So that's a terrible idea. You should do an infrastructure deal without privatizing our infrastructure. So that would be my answer to that, is that they probably wouldn't get behind it. But based off what I've seen so far about any infrastructure deals floated, you wouldn't want them to get behind it because they're terrible deals. What do you think about people fighting flat earthers and woo-woo people? I don't know enough about Logic and the other people you name here, but I generally support the idea of fighting back against flat earthers and people like that. But I would just say don't debate them, because that gives a false sense that there's two equal positions here in validity when you debate something. You should fact check them. You should do your videos and call them out and not give them a chance to rebut with their complete bullshit. So that's what I would say. Kyle, thank you so much. You inspired me to get into politics. I love hearing that. I love your show and personality from New Jersey. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and I love hearing that. Thank you, Stavo, for the donation. As an English teacher, SAT tutor, I'm worried about declining literacy. It's a problem even for those who attend small, well-funded private schools. So I doubt money alone will fix it. Why plus what to do? You know, Heather, that's a good question, but I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine you would have better answers to that than I would, because it seems like you're directly involved in this field. But I do know Allison Hartson was a teacher, and so she has some great points to make on the issue of education. And for those of you who haven't seen it, go watch her interview with Jimmy Dore, and she goes into detail about some of this stuff on education policy. So I would co-sign whatever Allison Hartson says, because she's generally great across the board, and this is an issue where I think she cares deeply about. Is another horrendous trade deal going to come back anytime soon? Yes, I know China is trying to push their regional comprehensive economic partnership after TPP's death. The answer is yes. I saw two articles, one that said Trump is now open to the idea of a new version of TPP because the last one wasn't a good deal, but I'm going to get a tremendous deal. So now Trump's open to the idea of the TPP. And I think he said that because there was another article that said Justin Trudeau is like, we're going to go and do TPP without America. And so Trump's like, no, tremendous. I need to get involved in this. What are you talking about? So yes, bad trade deals are still alive and well. Trump will eventually, sign on to them, and whatever, if it's a corporate Democrat that follows Trump or a different Republican that follows Trump, they will also sign on to shitty trade deals. So we still have to fight all these shitty trade deals because they're coming back. They're like zombies. They never go away because the corporate class and the elite class want them. And of course, they're the ones who donate all the money in politics, and they buy the politicians and our government, so they get whatever the fuck they want. So those trade deals are not going away. I'm going to buy a car. Any tips and tricks to know since you're an ex-salesman? Yeah, there's not that much markup in new cars. There's maybe $500 of markup in new cars. If you're buying a used car, you can hardball negotiate and say, I want $3,000 off, or whatever the case is. But there's not much wiggle room for negotiations in new cars. But just try to get, whatever, $400 off or something like that should be enough for a new car. I'm trying to keep up, guys. I'm sorry if I'm missing any here. How many bears did your teacher have to fend off with guns when you were in school? What? I don't get it. I'm from the suburbs, bro. What do you mean bears? I guess he's talking about there's a story about how they're trying to get more guns in schools now, the Republicans, so maybe he's referring to that and making a joke. But thanks for the donation, Austin. Appreciate it. I think you missed the long-term benefit of debate. It's not about the other person. It's about an audience that wouldn't normally hear you, and you planting a seed of doubt in them, eventually winning them over. Maybe. Or the flip side of that is you could do the bullshit that CNN does, which is you pretend like climate change is debatable, and you put a scientist up against a shitty congresswoman named Marsha Blackburn, and you pretend like, oh, here, let's hear out both sides. There are no two sides to climate change. It's fucking happening. All the science is clear on it, and you're not doing any favors by debating it. It's like saying, hey, we should debate whether rape is wrong. No, it's fucking wrong. We know it's wrong. So climate change is real. We know it's real. We know the earth is not flat. Some things are not debatable, and that's where the struggle comes in. But generally speaking, when things are debatable, like if somebody wants to debate me on the fucking tax rates that are the right tax rates, well, yeah, my opinions on that aren't factual, so I need to try to convince people of that. And on that front, you're right in your breakdown of it. Kyle, if we lower the voting age, wouldn't that push our government to send out even younger troops to fight these bullshit wars? Well, I want to stop the wars too, so I think we should walk and chew gum at the same time. And we should set the voting age and the drinking age and all that stuff correctly, but then also fight our imperialistic foreign policy and all the bullshit we do there. Rob asks, I think there needs to be a left-wing word for social justice warriors. Yeah, Leon came up with it, who does the Kyle Out of Context videos. Social injustice warriors. Social justice warrior is an insult that covers real issues like police brutality and college kids, calling a sushi shop cultural appropriation. That is true. Yeah, like the first time I heard social justice warrior, I was like, wait, I don't get it. So being in favor of social justice is a bad thing? But what people mean when they say that is the hypersensitive college kids who want to, you know, not ever get their feelings hurt. But you're right. A different word for social justice warriors, I would just say authoritarian left. That's what the social justice warriors are. Authoritarian left. But on the right, they're social injustice warriors. That's the right-wing version of a social justice warrior. What are your thoughts on the Maryland Dem primary? There's Our Revolution. Bernie endorsed former NAACP head Ben Jealous, facing Fight for 15, supporting progressive state senator Rick Madaleno for governor. If I'm not mistaken, I think both of them are for $15 minimum wage. I think they're probably both good candidates, but I don't know enough about the race. All I know is Ben Jealous is in the race. I knew that. I didn't know he had an opponent that was also a left-wing opponent. So I don't know enough about it, but now you guys know there's two left-wingers involved, and you guys could do your own research and support whichever one you think is the best. Kyle, what is your opinion on New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy? Do you think his Goldman Sachs ties discredit him, or does his stance on raising the minimum wage and legal pot make him acceptable? Listen, politics is a fucking gross, dirty game where you're almost always doing a lesser of two evils type situation. So I'm sure that Phil Murphy is better than whatever asshole Republican opponent he had. I have no doubt he's better than whatever asshole Republican opponent he had. But that also doesn't mean that he's just good. And again, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time, where we can beat up on the Democrats when they're wrong, while also understanding that the Republicans are significantly worse. And that's the line I try to walk on Secular Talk on a daily basis. Have you ever thought about running for any public office or even the presidency in the future? I've thought about it, but I don't know. I feel like I would run only if I felt like I absolutely had to, and I'm really compelled to, like, okay, I have no fucking choice. Nobody's doing this shit. And then I'd do it. But I really don't want to. I would only do it if I felt like I really had no other choice and I had to, because shit was so bad and I didn't trust anybody else to do the right thing. That's the only situation in which I'd run. So it's possible, but it's still a long shot. And in my heart of hearts, I don't want to do it. Aiden, thank you very much for your donation. If you don't debate Ben Shapiro, I'm going to put you in timeout. Keep up the good work. People have a hard on for that, man. They have, ever since I absolutely obliterated Razor Fist to the point where he was near death by the end of that. People have been begging for me to debate more. If you want an introduction to Marx and other socialist anarchists, thought you should read Peter Kropotkin's Mutual Aid and or The Conquest of Bread, as well as Pierre Joseph Proudhon's What is Property. Thank you very much, Luke, for the recommendations. And allow me to say for everybody, for those who are too scared off by the literature from Marx and anarchists, I've read a lot of Chomsky. And Chomsky, I had a lot of my political awakening through Noam Chomsky. And I highly recommend Noam Chomsky books to everybody. Hegemony or Survival is a great book, but all of his books are amazing. So for those of you who are looking for other books, definitely read Chomsky. I've read a lot of Chomsky, and he really opened my eyes to a lot of things. He takes a lot of people from like center-left kind of people or centrist-y kind of people and just makes them fucking flaming left-wingers who really care about the right issues. Can we get rid of our dependency on defense contractors? Perhaps just by having our military do their R&D instead of contracting out. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I like that idea. But also, the ultimate solution is just getting money, private money, out of the system and doing clean, publicly financed elections. That's the only way to really massively limit the corruption in the long term. Hey, Kyle, I'm majoring in poli-sci. The most revered teacher at my college is an Ayn Rand libertarian. How can I take advantage of my education? Also, thoughts on anarcho-syndicalism. Cheers, mate. So again, I spoke about anarcho-syndicalism a little bit earlier. That sucks, man. So at your school, the most revered teacher is an Ayn Rand libertarian. Are all the teachers Ayn Rand libertarian-ish? Like, are they all kind of libertarian-leaning? Listen, in my mind, the things you can learn from libertarians are all on social issues. They're very live and let live on social issues. Do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody else. I agree with them completely on social issues. In fact, I think they're better on social issues than a lot of just left-wingers are. But you're not going to learn shit from them on economics. It's just propaganda on economics, and it's sad and it's unfortunate. Am I through them all? I think I'm through them all. Yeah, I think that's all the super chats. Right? I think so. Okay, well, how long have we been talking for? Oh, we got a new one. In the U.S., someone can smoke a few joints and then test positive for weed 2 weeks afterwards if they get into a car crash. What do you think? Reaching character limit. In the U.S., someone can smoke a few joints. Yeah, that is a problem, isn't it? Like, if somebody gets to a car crash and they drug test them and then they have weed in their system from 2 weeks ago and they pretend like it's their fault because they were high. Yeah, that's fucked up. But still, I wouldn't recommend driving while high on weed. That's probably not a good idea. Don't drive while you're high on any substance, unless it's an upper that makes you focus more. Then you can drive on those substances. They might actually help you drive better. But don't speed when you're on those substances. Don't speed when you're on speed. That's my recommendation to everybody. What are your thoughts on Sargon quotes? I see the fake ones sometimes. I don't really read through the comment section often on the YouTube channel, but when I do, I always see fake Sargon quotes. And I'm like, I don't get this. But they're oftentimes funny. But I'm sure he knows that they're fake, so he probably doesn't care that they're out there. If you do another shirt drive, could you use a different slogan? It kind of sounds like Ben Shapiro's facts don't care about your feelings. Yeah. If we do another shirt drive, we're going to do remodel of a bunch of different things, including the facts are stubborn things saying. What are your thoughts on public subsidies for political parties like in other countries? I find it weird that the political parties in the US, like the DNC and the RNC, they're considered private institutions. It's like, what? But you're political parties and you're running to be the head of the public sector, the government. You're running to be in the legislative branch or the executive branch of the government. It's weird that that's considered like private. It's like, no, that should be totally accountable and transparent to the people. So we do have a weird system here in the US, that's for sure. Kyle, if you could get any 2 policies tomorrow instantly, what would they be? And by the way, Kyle, you should play Final Fantasy VIII. 2 policies instantly. So you're saying policies, so I can't pick like money out of politics? I can't pick ending corruption? Okay, well, we'll just say that that's probably the number one issue, but if we put that issue aside, which we're going to do for the sake of this question, I would say Medicare for all and living wage, but they're both kind of tied with ending the wars. So I'm giving you 3, even though you said to give 2, because they're also important. Thoughts on H.A. Goodman? He's a hack. Also, if you haven't watched Sticks, it is quite unfair to post him as a Holocaust denier. Not from the tweets I've seen. I saw tweets that were very clear, where he's like nuanced trolling about the Holocaust, about like, well, no, I mean, you have to understand that the body count is not as high as they say. It's like, why the fuck? Anybody who's interested in that topic, other than to say the Holocaust is fucked up and wrong, and obviously it happened, you've gone too far if you go past that. If you say, well, I don't know, I mean, look, the kind of gas that they use was not the right kind. That's not, you're in the wrong crowd, buddy. You're in the wrong crowd. And by the way, on H.A. Goodman, all you need to know about H.A. Goodman is look at all of his articles in the Democratic primary. He was arguing it's inevitable. There's going to be an indictment of Hillary and Bernie's going to be the nominee. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. That's going to happen. And he wrote those articles time and time again, and every one of them was wrong. And then afterwards, he acts like, he didn't lose any credibility. You lost all your fucking credibility. You claimed things were going to happen that didn't happen. Nobody should be listening to you. You're full of shit. You made shit up. Either that or you were played by shitty sources. But either way, you should be so thoroughly publicly embarrassed by that you should never want to show your face on the internet again. It's really fucking pathetic and embarrassing. So those are my thoughts on H.A. Goodman. I have nothing ever further to say ever about that guy. Kyle, I've been utterly inspired by you specifically. What do you think of progressive media outlets uniting to form a website and post share? Also, I want to start a podcast while I'm in college because of you. Much love. Hey, thanks. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know. I love the idea of as many people getting involved in progressive talk as possible is a great thing. Uniting under one thing is a little tough because we all believe in using our own minds and being independent thinkers and coming to our own conclusions. So to really put it all under one banner, all the different things, it just strikes me as a little too antithetical to what it means to be a progressive. But I still love the idea of as many people getting involved in it as possible. And I hope that answers your question. Hey man, I enjoy your show. I'm a Christian and believe the Bible, but I feel like you take it out of context all the time. What's up with that? No. First of all, I rarely talk about the Bible, and when I do talk about the Bible, I'm just talking about literal passages. So you could be a Christian and say, like, I'm a Christian the same way somebody says, like, I'm American. Like, that's just my identity. That's how I was raised. But if you actually believe the Bible, you're just factually wrong. That's not a debatable thing. I mean, you know, in the Bible, they talk about 7-headed dragons. They allude to the earth being flat repeatedly in the Bible. There's rules about you can't eat shellfish. You can't wear a mix of 2 different fabrics. It's an abomination in the eyes of God to do those things. And, you know, for Christians, they say, well, the one thing that's true, even if they say it's all allegories and it's not meant to be taken literally, you do have to believe that the resurrection, though, because that has to be true in order for Jesus to be God. And that didn't happen. There's no 3 people that are one person, the Holy Trinity. There's no zombie Jewish carpenter. That didn't happen. So it's the same as if you were raised in Iran, you would be Shia Muslim. If you're raised in Saudi Arabia, you'd be Sunni Muslim. If you're raised in India, you'd be Hindu. And you're just kind of accepting the mythology of your time and place where you're born. And you shouldn't, because it's not true. But that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're incorrect about your religious philosophy. Kyle turned me into a communist. Well, that's weird because I'm not a communist. I'm a mild social democrat. Hey, Kyle, even if Dems go fully social democratic and implement all the policies, if Bernie and Dems do not stack SCOTUS, reps will come back and repeal all that away. They must go radical. Thoughts? I mean, you're going to have people die in the court very soon, and you're going to have to pick the replacements. So you need populist left Democrats like Bernie in there to pick the right people to be on the court. But yeah, you're always going to have this tug of war back and forth between Republicans and Democrats and the different policies. And it's just a matter of us being louder, more aggressive, winning more elections, and then getting the right judges in place. I mean, people forget FDR couldn't lose. FDR kept winning. He died in office. He won, 4 elections? So when people are given the option of a social democrat, they don't turn away. They stay there. And that's why they came up with term limits. Republicans were like, we're never going to win again if we don't do term limits because FDR is too popular. So if we win, very good things happen. How do you stay motivated? I've been doing web programming and going to college in 3D animation soon. Staying motivated is killing me at times. Don't force yourself. It's that simple. Don't force yourself. You have to get inspiration from other places. You have to, oh shit, look at what's happening over here. Ooh, I think I could do that. I could do better than that. You know what I mean? So just always be absorbing everything that goes on around you in the related fields that you're interested in. And then that will give you inspiration. But then also don't wear yourself out. You need to do self-care, and you need to, take time off and unplug from the things you love for a little bit. You have to do that because you're human. But, you'll find motivation in, surprising places sometimes. Like Tiger Woods just came back the other day. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Tiger Woods. That motivated me. I'm like, oh shit, he came back. He finished 23rd in a tournament after not playing a full schedule since like 2013. That's amazing. And that motivated me for what I do, which makes no sense because that's golf and I'm doing political fucking commentary. But you'll find inspiration in little things like that. You just can't force it. It has to come to you. I also think you are 100% wrong on debates, in that debating someone who is off the spectrum does not normalize the position, and it is necessary to debate those ideas when they are believed by so many people. You're half right. You're half right, because the way I debate those people, yes, sometimes it doesn't normalize them because I try to make clear during the debate, this person is comically wrong and it's preposterous. But for most debates, no, if you have somebody debate a position, all of a sudden that topic becomes debatable because you're going to have two people who are getting roughly the same amount of speaking time and one person's full of shit and the other one's making sense. But people will go, I don't know, it's 50-50 because they're talking about it. So you're half right. The way I debate people, oftentimes it doesn't come across like the other person had any point at all because I get mad when people try to make points that are just so ridiculous that I'm like offended that they're even bothering to make them to my face because it's like disrespectful. I know it's a bit cynical, but could this corruption get so bad where a repeat of the French Revolution happens here in the US? I don't know. We have too many modern things that distract us, like fucking TV and Netflix and video games and online porn and so much shit to distract us that I don't think that would ever happen. But there's definitely going to be versions of revolutions. You know what I mean? Like the populist left wave is going to be a version of a revolution. The movement to get money out of politics is a version of a revolution. I'm always in favor of nonviolent revolutions. What do you think of the argument that in occupying other countries, America is trying to self-preserve itself as a superpower? I think that's true. Do you think this is a valid argument? Yes, I do, but I think that's wrong. We're occupying other countries. We have 900 military bases around the world that cost $100 billion a year to maintain. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. You could still run the world with half those bases. I mean, but we just throw money at it. And yes, the whole idea is to exert influence and power and jack natural resources from other countries and keep the status quo going and maintain our position as the world's sole superpower. That's definitely what it's about. Personally, I think the problem with JD is that money will need to be removed from politics first through a state-pushed amendment for change to occur. No. Alexandria, well, I don't know exactly which point you're making. If you're saying it needs to happen on a state-by-state basis to get a constitutional convention to get the amendment in the Constitution, then yes, you're right. But if you're saying, like, change money and politics laws at the state level to affect it at the state level, then you're wrong because the Constitution overrides the state constitution. So even if you get money out of politics at a state level, that's not good enough. You need to go to the Constitution to get an amendment that says we have clean elections by law, supreme law of the land, no private money's allowed in our elections. But you may have been trying to make the point that I was making anyway, that you need to go through the states to get a constitutional convention to change the U.S. Constitution. If that's the point you're making, you're right. Hey, brother, huge fan of your show. Usually shoot sexy women, but it would be an honor to shoot headshots for you. I shot TYT photos and will be in DC at the end of the month. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you saying that, but listen, I'm not a hotshot. I'm a regular ass dude. I get my pictures taken on my iPhone and I don't care if they're not high enough quality. I'm just a regular dude. So thank you for the offer, but I'm a layman, so I just take pictures on my cell phone and leave it as is. I don't need headshots for what I do. When is global intervention needed to stop despotic or authoritarian regimes? Okay, so that's a great question. The only time I would use international power through the UN, where all the countries are involved, is to stop a genocide. That's when I would use international authority with all the nations involved. The only time I would use unilateral force, so U.S. force alone, our military, is defense of our nation from an imminent attack. So that's my standard. If you want to stop a genocide, go through the UN. We all work together. You go stop the genocide through whatever means necessary, humanitarian aid or force. But if it's just a brutal regime, oftentimes you just have to wait for the people in those regimes to overturn those regimes, either through peaceful methods or otherwise. But there's nothing that can be done by the international community about North Korea. You can't do it. Because anytime you do anything, they'll destroy Seoul, South Korea like that. So nothing can be done. You could feel horrible for the people of North Korea. You could try to airdrop them aid or some shit. But nothing can be done to just topple the regime. Nor will that have good long-term consequences. So I hope that answers your question. My general rule is only use unilateral force, U.S. force, if there's a direct, imminent threat of attack against the U.S., so wars of self-defense, fine with. But the only time to use international force where we all come together at the UN to try to stop something is to stop a genocide. And you could argue that we're in that situation like with the Rohingya, for example, but that's a longer conversation for another day. Have you read Democracy, Inc., Managed Democracy and the Spectre of Inverted Totalitarianism by Wolin? He died in 2015, but the book remains incredibly relevant to modern U.S. politics. Thoughts? I have not read that book. I like how you guys are giving me all these recommendations, though. How long have we been doing our stream here for? Have you read Democracy? We already did that one. Hey, Kyle, I'm 16 and want to ensure you I'm not only listening to one viewpoint. Got any recommendations of other political commentators? Also, I'm a patron and I'd love to see more debates. Shapiro. It always comes back to Shapiro. Well, thank you very much. Recommendations. Yeah, just, give some love to all indie media. Jimmy Dore does a good show. Humanist Report does a good show. I'm very close friends, or I'm friends with David Pakman. I'm part of the TYT network. There is a diversity of opinion among all of us on a variety of different issues. And there's a lot of good, Tom Hartman, he was one of my inspirations for when I even started to do this show. He still does a show. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. I hope that answers your question. And I hope that you do check those people out. What do you think about the districts in Pennsylvania that are going to be redrawn? Oh, yeah, they struck down, I think it was Republican gerrymandered districts. That's great. We should just end gerrymandering. Just end gerrymandering. You can find a way to do it where it's not massively biased and partisan. Here in New Zealand, we changed away from plurality voting in 96 and immediately had 6 parties. I think that's the easiest way to fix U.S. politics. Get individual states to change to preferential voting. I would love it if the U.S. had more political parties. I think that'd be great. I would love it if we abolished the Senate, because I think the Senate is very undemocratic. I would love it if we don't have the Electoral College anymore and we just have the popular vote. Even though, yes, I know that would have given us Hillary Clinton. But I just think if we had the popular vote, we would have never had George W. Bush. It would have been Al Gore. It would have been a very different world if that was the case. So on principle, I'd get rid of the Electoral College. I'd get rid of the Senate. I would add more political parties. I'd make us a little bit more of a parliamentary style system. There's a lot of things I would change. And of course, again, the biggest one is getting money out of politics. Will centrist Democrats fight against the progressive wave they see coming, or will they eventually coalesce into the Republican Party? They're going to continue to fight the progressive wave until they can no longer fight it and the progressive wave wins. And then they'll turn around and go, oh, no, we were with you all along. I don't know what you mean. We love you. And we agree with all your policy ideas. That's what'll happen. So they'll fight it till the bitter end, until there's no way that anything happens without the progressive wave winning, populist left winning. And then when the populist wave wins, they'll turn around and go, oh, we knew they were going to win and we've been with them all along. That's what's going to happen. What is the most likely scenario for a dystopian future? Orwellian, in which the state oppresses through Big Brother, or Huxley, in which the oppressed are indifferent by ignorance and self-pleasure? That's a great question, Elliot. I think it's both. I think we're already kind of living in a little bit of a dystopian future. I mean, the NSA collects all of our metadata. It could spy on all of us. They spied on their own love interests, their ex-boyfriends and girlfriends. They fucking spied on their own love interests. That's wild, man. That's so wild. How do you do that? And there's been countless abuses. And even corporate Democrats just voted, oh, let's let Trump have more NSA spying powers. So it's a MIC resistance. It's not a real resistance. So what we're going to have in the future is the government spying on everybody, us voluntarily giving all of our information to the authorities and to the establishment through big corporations that are in bed with the government, like Facebook, for example, like Google. And we're going to easily be under the thumb of the establishment in that respect. They already have so much on us to begin with. So it's that dystopian future plus jobs going away, moving towards automation, and then there's going to be a struggle because there's so much income and wealth inequality that people can't just sit back and take it, that there's going to be some bubbling up, and it could get ugly for a while. In Denmark, we have no government-mandated minimum wage yet due to high benefits and unions. There you go. We got high minimum wages. How do you evaluate the state of U.S. workers' unions? They're in disarray right now. And thank you for sharing about Denmark. What we need card check. That's pro-union legislation. We need to ban so-called right-to-work states. which really are right to work for less states because people in those states make $1,500 less on average than workers in states with unions. And we should copy a lot of what Denmark does. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not a coincidence that in the US, when union membership was at its highest, we had the strongest middle class we've ever had. It was called the golden age of economic expansion in the US. So pro-union legislation is a key part in waging war back against the rich. Remember, it was the rich who declared class warfare on workers. So now it's just time for workers to fight back. And one of the main things you have to fight for is unionization, pro-union policies. Hey, Kyle, big fan. While I'm excited to vote for Bernie in 2020, I often think it would be better if he threw his weight behind a younger progressive like Tulsi Gabbard. Thoughts? I think Bernie should do everything that he can do to boost up young populist left voices like Tulsi Gabbard and Ro Khanna. And by the way, he is doing that. He tweeted out a thing with Ro Khanna the other day. I thought that was great. But no, I don't think he needs to step aside. I think as long as he's healthy, and seems like he is, yeah, fuck it, run. You're the most popular politician in the country. People love you. Every time you talk, everybody falls even more in love with you, and they realize why they love you. You're totally policy-oriented. You want to fix everybody's situation. You want to fix the country. So yeah, fuck it, run. Run, absolutely. And also pack your administration with people like that. Okay, and we're out of super chats now. I think we're gonna wrap it up here because I've been live streaming for a while, so I haven't eaten anything yet. I had breakfast way earlier, but now it's 5 o'clock here, and I'm fucking starving. So I'm gonna go eat something. And I will be live tweeting the State of the Union. I will be live tweeting it, so follow along. We'll have some fun. Watch the State of the Union. Read the tweets. We're going to do that, and then I will be doing a breakdown of a lot of the speech come the next Secular Talk Super Show on Thursday, so that should be fun as well. No Kyle and Corin tomorrow because I'll be live tweeting the State of the Union at the time we would normally do it. But anyway, thank you guys for listening. I love you. Thank you so much for all your contributions. And for those of you who don't, please consider supporting on Patreon. If you just give $2 a month, $3 a month, 5, 7 if you want to go nuts. But all we ask is $2 a month if you like Secular Talk, if you like the show. Isn't it awesome that we now get to say we're a grassroots funded show? Because the overwhelming majority of Secular Talk's income comes from you guys in just small dollar donations, recurring small dollar donations, $2 every month, $3 every month. And I think that's awesome. I think that's fucking great. Go see if Wolf Blitzer can set up a model like this and succeed. He wouldn't be able to. He would not be able to. He would go bankrupt in a day and a half. So I think that speaks to how important what we're doing is. And that really makes me happy to think that you guys really fuel the show through stuff like Super Chats and through Patreon. So patreon.com/Secular Talk. Thanks again so much, guys, for all your support, for the patrons, for all your comments. It really means a lot to me. And let's have some fun. We'll have some fun live tweeting the debate. And live tweeting the State of the Union. And that's and then breaking it down on Thursday on the Secular Talk Super Show. All right, final question. We got one more super chat, and I'm not going to leave you hanging. Do you think the technological singularity is near? Seriously, though, what do you think of universal basic income? Again, on universal basic income, I like the idea of a negative income tax rate more, where you give money to poor people, like they get a universal basic income, and the higher you go up the economic ladder, the rich people, they don't get a check. They don't get universal basic income. They get money taken from them through taxes and redistributed to the poor. So my answer is I prefer a negative income tax rate, and I do not prefer a universal basic income. But having said that, I'm not against universal basic income. I just haven't heard a more compelling argument as to why it's better than a negative income tax rate system. So again, that's my take on universal basic income. If you want to talk me into it, guys, try to talk me into it. I'm not opposed to it, but I prefer a negative income tax rate. And I don't know how far off the technological singularity is, but we're getting close. I saw that episode of Black Mirror with the chip behind the ear where they can rewind and look at the memories they had and like watch them like it's on TV in their eyeballs. We're getting kind of close to stuff like that. We're getting kind of close to stuff like that. And it's kind of creepy. So maybe it's not that far off. I really don't know. But anyway, all right, guys. I love you, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.